All right, hello everybody. Welcome to the Virtual Rentap 2021 Chess Tournament. So I am your host for today. My name is Hakim, and you could call me Hakim, and I'm joined today by my co-host Aman. Aman, say something to the lovely viewer or viewers we having. I don't know.
That's me. Hello, and thanks for watching the stream. I'm hoping for interesting rounds of chess today.
Yeah, we've got 12 players lined up here for the Swiss tourney that we're going to have here. The battles will be concurrent, so we'll be swapping between the players, seeing how everyone's doing. And yeah, should be pretty interesting. Of course, we have a pretty hefty prize of what is it, 12 euros, right?
12 euros
Alan,
for
12
first
euros.
place. Don't remember. I don't remember what the prizes for the second and third place are, but they will also get something, and also medals for everyone participating, and special medals for first, second, and third.
And don't forget bragging rights. This is all about the bragging rights, really. I feel among
That's
these
really
group of
what it
people.
is at the end of the day.
That's really
Yeah.
what it's all about. Who's
Yeah.
who's winning, who's losing, and why you lost. And guess what? The only people who they're gonna listen to are the winners. So I think that's the main prize here. But that's one thing. So we're currently waiting. We're about to start here, and honestly, I'm looking forward. We have kind of a equal amount. Some of these are new players. You can see the ratings aren't completely accurate yet, but it looks like should be fair among all the players. What do you think, Owen?
I think so too. There's some people here who are supposedly really, really good at the game. But because we're
You
using
mean
a
you know them
Swiss system, they
personally?
should be matched accordingly.
I see. Okay, that should be interesting.
Just checking the stream on another device. Looks like everything's working incredibly well.
That's good. That's good.
Okay, 3 seconds.
Yeah. Alrighty, so we have kicked off. Everyone's about to get ready in, and the timers are already going. We can really see any of the players starting. Some of us already started. Okay, classic opening, e4, and then black also responds, already challenging the center squares here. We're already at a standstill.
I guess everyone's just doing their openings right now.
Yeah, everything pretty standard here that you can see. You can see people developing their pieces, particularly the knights here. You can see the match between Dominic and Azam here already going out. Pieces are already flying into the center here.
It's a very strong start from both teams in it.
Yeah,
Teams and
Bishop
both
already
players.
attacking this, kind of forking between the knight here. Of course, Black has the bishop protecting the knight there on that square, but a lot of development. Might see some castling here soon. There it is. So now the rook is in a position to kind of attack the file here, the e file going straight down. White is in a really strong position here, Aman. You don't see it, but a lot of the squares are being controlled by the pawns, and then the pieces behind them are really controlling it. Okay,
I see
advanced
that.
movement here. We have the bishop still watching that little diagonal there. So that black knight isn't really safe, but ooh, okay. This is a fork here, but we'll see. All right, queen takes. Queen is forced to move up. Now is watching the diagonal there as well on these black squares.
Oh, I see. So
This
the
is
queen can
very
watch these two
fast
diagonals,
moving.
you mean?
Yes, that is what I mean. And also, you can see the bishop that is on D3, I believe, is currently staring down not only at the black knight, but also protecting the pawn, which is on its left diagonal. So it's a very useful position for white here. And usually that's why you want to develop your pieces very early on.
I see.
I think we can move around, though, because it seems the players are starting to think about what they can do. This game is developed very quickly.
Sure.
And oh my goodness, can we see Cater D and Akademeri? Can we look at that battle right there?
Which game is that? Which number?
That one right there, yeah. Game number one. Game number
Game
one.
number one.
My goodness, this has turned out to an all-out slog, as you can see. White has not developed their pieces. The bishop is still on the starting square. So is the queen. The queen has not developed at all. This is like a stark difference from the last game. But the pieces of white, they're still active. You can see the bishop there on the b file there. I think that's a b5. Is currently staring down not only the black knight, but also the rook on that e file. So it's a very dangerous position, and they move the rook, threatening the bishop. Could be bishop takes, but if bishop takes, it's probably a trade with the queen. He moves back, now staring down the diagonal, threatening the king. If the pawn on that F rank ever moves. So pretty interesting game. I think white should be in a better position here because they have all their pieces moved up. The queen is in a corner. For black, it's not the best position. So I think we can jump back to this later. Let's see these other games we have.
What looks interesting to you?
I think we should go to game number, I think that's game number 5. Let's look at game number 5 here. Now, as you can see here, black has already developed both its knights. Oh, knight takes and then rook takes. Okay, so the rook is all the way out in the open. Looking down at, you can see if you look at all of the lanes that it's looking down on the rook on that e file, it's not really looking down on anything. It's only protecting the bishop. So although it took, it's actually now in a more vulnerable position. So we'll see what black does here. And should be pretty interesting, but we can kind of look back on it from afar. We can go out to the main screen here. It seems like everyone's kind of developed, though. Everyone's made their moves. Oh, actually, have we seen game 5 here? Let's go look at game 5. Oh, that was the one that we just looked at, right?
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah, white is more developed. Black is not as developed. You see that bishop there, all the way there at C file there. C3 is
This
not
one?
C3, all the way at C10.
C4.
The black
Oh,
bishop.
this one,
black
okay.
bishop. Yeah, hasn't developed. You see, it's only looking down a diagonal that has absolutely no pieces. Preferably, the bishop should be forward. Okay, so they push the rook up, threatening the rook to back off. You see, the black rook is threatening the white rook on that E lane there. Yes,
Got
of
it.
course. And black doesn't have any pieces protecting this rook, so this should be free for black to go for. So white has to take the defensive here, I believe. But I'm not entirely sure if white's going to do that or they're going to develop another piece. Because the queen, as you can see, yeah, the queen for white is all the way in the starting position. It's not protecting, it's protecting the knight, but the knight is in no danger. So this doesn't really accomplish anything for white right now. So I think black's in a better position for this. Let's see any games here. Ooh, okay, go to game 2. Game 2 is looking very spicy right now. We just got a check here. Black queen on the king on that.
Oh, I see, yes.
On that D file there.
Yeah.
Straight up, and this is a fork, as you can see. This is a fork because the black queen can actually take knight right there on the diagonal, but the queen is guarding that knight. If black is able to maybe move one of its rooks, you can see the rook all the way on the far corner of the right, maybe move it up to cover for the queen. This could be a very advantageous spot. He moves the white king over to the left here. This game's pretty interesting, but the rooks are not developed at all on both sides. A little bit of a error here on both parts.
I see.
Because the rooks aren't really doing anything, yes.
So at this point, the rook should be more towards the middle of the board, or like more open
towards the center where they can affect the game. Because it's either you push out the pawns that are blocking the rooks so that they can actually enter through the sides, or you castle. But it seems both sides didn't castle this game. At least it looks that way, because otherwise the rooks would be closer to the center. Okay, so this is threatening the bishop on that square right there, yes. The knights are in a pretty good position. I just realized black doesn't have any of its bishops. Black has lost both bishops compared to the white, who has not only both rooks, but both bishops. But they don't have any knights, other than this one knight here. So I'd say white is a bit up in material, but black is really putting the pressure here. But I think we can come back to this later. Let's look at some of the other matches going on at the moment.
Very interesting development so far, though, from the games we've seen.
Yes. Okay, can you go to game 1? Go to game 1 here. So what you see from black here is usually what ends up happening after both sides castle is you'll see like a pawn structure that's covering for the king on one corner wherever they're castling, and then usually a mixture of the other pieces of bishops or knights that are kind of developed at this point. And you see this, black has a really good position here. If you see the bishop on that B file, all the way up there, the black bishop on B, is staring down that diagonal along with the queen. That is a deadly combo. If it's a discover check, if any of the material from white gets eaten here, it can open up to a very nasty attack, because it could be a queen trade into a check. Oh, but it looks like he opts to go for something else, the queen threatening the knight and also maybe moving in closer. It's a very dangerous position for white, but they have all their pieces kind of clammed up.
So in this match, which side do you think has the better positioning?
Which side has the better positioning? Ooh, that was a very brazen play from White. Not only getting their knight out of the threat from the queen, but also moving it up, threatening the bishop, the black bishop, protecting the king. I was about to say that this is looking kind of even, but in total, White has more pawns, and the center pawns that White has are very strong. They're controlling a lot of space on the board because the queen can't just go sit in front of the. Wait a minute. I think this might have been a blunder from White here. Early on, I think White may have had an opportunity to take the queen, but we'll see how this match goes. You can see the timer for Black is kind of ticking down. So Black has maybe been more on the defensive side so far. So, okay, knight takes, king takes. King is now out in the open. As you can see, this is actually a very good move from White, is that the black pawn structure is destroyed. There's no longer a pawn structure that's protecting the king. The king is now open. And this is a very interesting position here. I think this game, if anything, is one of the games that might end a lot sooner than we think.
I see.
So let's try and see some of these other games here.
Okay.
Oh my goodness. Go down, go down.
Give me a minute. I'm doing some things. Okay. Going down. Anything looks interesting?
Go to game 5. Go to game 5. This is a pretty funny. I find this humorous. I wouldn't say this is good or bad, but the pawn structure, as you can see, a lot of things that we're told when we're learning chess is take control of the center. And you might notice that Black has absolutely no pawns. The center pawns that are usually on the E and F or D and E kind of file are absolutely gone. They're not there anymore. You could say White has complete control of the center. Their pieces are very well developed, but a lot of material has been exchanged here. Both sides do not have any of their knights. In fact, both sides only have one rook, one bishop, and the queen. But this is kind of equal, but I'd say White is more favored here. They have their pawns, one pawn on the center here, controlling a lot of space, being protected by the queen. Maybe developing the rook on White's side could be better. Maybe moving the rook maybe to d4 maybe would be a good idea. But because that rook isn't doing that much in that corner there, frankly. But I feel this game might take a while because they don't have that many options. Oh, as soon as I say that, Black moves the bishop forward from a passive position all the way up here, being protected by the queen. And they do exactly as I say. I said just like I said previously,
Amazing.
Making that rook an active player, moving it up. Not threatening anything, but kind of staring down that lane, kind of like a barrel, like the gun barrel, just looking down whoever crosses that street. Kind of giving you a morbid view, but that's basically the power of the rook. Whoever crosses that line is it's donezo. But yeah, this game might take a while. We might want to go look at another game right now. Ooh, can we look at game 2? And it looks like we've already actually finished one of the games here. One of the games is already completed. Can we look back at that game?
Which game? Game 2
Can it show? We'll look at game 2 first. Wouldn't want to miss game 2 if it finishes. You can see here, game 2, the king. This is the one that the pawn structure was destroyed earlier. Game 2, this game here, Black is kind of on the fringes. The queen, you see the white queen is maneuvering around, taking material, taking a lot of space. The king doesn't have a corner to defend from. That's very bad because when you're in a corner, you don't have to really cover for the king on some of its adjacent spaces, because other pieces can't maneuver there. But because the king is all the way up here, all the way on the H6 here, right? This H6 square for the king leaves him open to attacks from behind, from diagonal. If a piece is eaten and he can't move right here, okay. So he goes for the proactive play. The knight goes to F, and there's check. Like I said, who's protecting the king here? King can't move back. Queen is staring down that lane. So king moves forward. Bishop takes. Where does the king go? King takes. Okay, very good. Black has actually played this pretty well. Moving it forward is the right move, and technically he couldn't move it back anyway because the queen would have taken. It was the only legal move, you could say.
I
So
see.
right here, I feel like white and black. I think black is has a more valuable piece. I feel technically, especially right in this game, in this situation, black squared bishop is very, very powerful. A lot
This
of
one right
white's
here.
pieces are on, yeah, a lot of white's pieces are on the black squares. So the black square bishop is actually very powerful in this game. But of course, this is a check here. Moving it. This might be sandwiching, depending on what black does. This could be the end of the game. Uh, you have to make sure not to move or make any blunders that would lead to a checkmate. Because right now, as you can see, the knight is looking over that H square, their H6. So king is very limited in its movement, and the pawn on that H file is also watching over the knight, making sure you can't take knight in response to a check. So I feel personally, if the rook, oh wow, he moves king there. I guess to avoid the diagonal, as you can see, the bishop and the black queen staring down that diagonal there could have threatened the king if the pawn was removed. So it's a very good move here. I think we can return to this in a bit. We can go see any of the other games.
Interesting.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so can we look back at game one, the one that finished? Is that a
I'm
possibility?
not sure that's a possibility.
Let's try. Can you click on it, or is that not how that works?
I don't think so. This will click on the user, not the game.
So I guess we missed that game. It was very unfortunate. I would have liked to see how it
Oh, I
ended.
think we can actually. Let's see if I can do
Okay,
this.
so click on it a little bit. All right, so go to the last few moves. Go to the last few moves. I want to see. So
Let's
did
see
it
this
end
one.
here? Was it? I guess it was a resignation, or what happened?
I'm not sure. This looks like the end as far as I can tell.
Oh, this is checkmate. You can see here because black's pawn on that F square is threatening, so king can't move to the side there. Yeah,
Right,
because it's check.
right.
King has no legal moves here. Moving to the right is still being pinned by the queen. Very well played by black. Because
I
even though
see.
the white's queen is all the way up there, all the way in that A file, black found a. See, this is the power of moving the pawns that forward. Although it only controls 2 squares, that's all it really has to do.
It's
Because
very
a
interesting.
powerful piece like the queen can really take up any available escape routes. So game one was won by who was it? Who won this game?
I think it was won by Sushil.
All right, Sushil won this game. Congrats to Sushil. All right, let's go see the other games. Let's see what's developing right now. Yeah, game two, they're still in that situation, moving around, king and queen. Like I said, that game's going to take a while because there's only so many moves you can make.
Right.
Um, let's go to game six. Game six still has a lot of pieces, but it's very archaic, as you can see. I think black castled here because I see the king in that particular square, and the rook is missing here, one of black's rooks. And the queen, the white queen, is all the way in black's defenses. But you see, it's not actually in danger. Because whatever piece would want to take the white queen, yes, is being protected by that bishop on that square.
Okay.
And at the same time, that bishop is attacking that weak, relatively weak square on the H file. Oh, okay. So queen moves, moving away from that black square bishop for the white's bishop, and gets taken. I'm not entirely sure what it was, but it may be because there's not really any move that black could have made there. If you go back, you can go back a few moves, Aman.
Oh yeah, true.
Yeah, go back a few moves here, right? Back one more move. So you see here, black's queen is already being threatened by the bishop.
Okay.
And there's not really too much you could do. I guess there's an argument to be made that you can move the queen back to d2, right? D2 could be a move,
Where's D2?
but it's d2 is right there, the square that you just moved it towards.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you could move queen there, but it's a very, very kind of passive move. And then even then, the white could just move another piece, threaten the queen again, and at the same time develop another piece. So kind of an unfortunate move. Let's go to the present move right now and see what they're at. Ooh, it's check already. But like I said, I feel like white put themselves in a very valuable position there because had so many pieces protecting, not only protecting the queen, but also threatening to take their pieces. I feel like this game's going to cut it close. Either white is going to lose here or win here, but he has 1 minute left. White has 1 minute left.
Right.
So
It's
keep
not
in
enough
mind, this is
time.
why we time things. So we don't want players taking too long, but Very good here. This is covering, you see the bishop here, the white bishop, is doing the same purpose that the previous play had, in that previous game, the check, in game one. It's serving the same purpose as a pawn. Oh my. So this here is a very strenuous. Oh, okay. So the pawn is gone. This is looking very bad for black. This is looking like a mate in a few moves here. In fact, it should be.
It's a check.
That's a check. And I think that this is close. This is close. White has a mate here. I'm pretty sure white has a mate. But what time's ticking for white? Only 40 seconds. I think we'll stay on this. Okay, moves over, maybe threatening to take some material instead since it doesn't have the time to play its games. But black is playing it cool. Black's got 3 minutes. Ooh. See, black's playing it smart. I mean, black, not only in maneuvering out of the check, is also threatening to take the white bishop.
Right,
I think this might go to black purely off of time. White might have taken a little too long to maneuver through this game. Check again. The thing is, white queen can't take the knight on
D8, yeah.
Yeah, because there's the rook looking over it. And if anything, black is pushing forward. I think this might be a game for black, honestly.
Yeah, 20 seconds left. It's not a lot of time.
But leave it to chess players to come out with those last few minutes of tough decisions to make. So I won't put it past white. He was in a winning position earlier, but things are looking pretty grim. If there was another piece, if that pawn didn't get in, oh, okay, interesting move here. See, if there was another piece, okay, moving the king forward. This is where the king, you can look at the king like having a circle of, like, you see that, let's say the first, like, 1 squares around him in like a rectangle. He blocks off all of that area. So this is buying that space for the king to be an active member. And now this is a check. All right, let's see what happens here. Still can retreat, yep, like that. The king is controlling a lot of space right now. King could just take that pawn, move forward, remove space from the, discover check, very good, from white. You see, these kinds of decisions only come to people who either spend hours and hours on chess, on lead chess, or people who know how to play it, because this is classified as endgame. When you have so few pieces, there are only a specific amount of moves you can make, and preferably you want to trap the enemy king in a quadrant. And you can see this king hasn't moved out of this left corner for the last like 20 moves. And that's a good check. That's a good check. Because you see the only squares that the king could move is around there. Oh my. But the king can still move forward. Yes, the king can still move forward. 13 seconds, 15 seconds.
Ooh, man.
That's very good. That might have been a blunder from black. Because putting the rook there doesn't accomplish anything because you can't take back with the king because the bishop is already watching the white square. That bishop on b3 there. Yeah, on b3 is very powerful. Oh, on g6. Oh yeah, I forgot because it's mirrored. We're watching from black's perspective.
Right.
The bishop on g6 there is controlling all those squares. And I think this might be the timer's over. I think it's a black resignation, probably.
Oh, white is victorious. That's true. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Damn.
I told you, leave it to the lead chess players, Aman. And we only have 1 game left. Let's go back to game 7 here. Absolutely insane, these games.
Yeah, I can't believe he pulled the victory out of that. That was quite
he pulled the victory out of, I wouldn't say out of thin air. He knew what he was doing. He made sure that king could not move anywhere else. And this is classic endgame again. Both sides have the exact same pieces, but how do you end the game? And it looks like on this side here, one player only has 20 seconds again. Do you think this player can pull it off, just like the one we saw last time?
Seems like there's a lack of material on the board to see something like
yes, that. There's a lot less options here. But that just means there's so many more mistakes you can make because
Right,
there's not as
right.
many options.
Oh, black
Okay,
still has
check.
the queen though. I didn't see that.
Yeah, but because the black was preoccupied moving because it was always a check, 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 check. But yeah, queen is definitely a lot more maneuverable. A lot more you can do with the queen here. Ooh, nice check. Protected by the white by the white rook, as you can see. That check there.
Right, right. I see.
Yeah, staring down that corridor there, just making sure whatever move it. Oh, offering a trade. Obviously, black does not take here. Black has to move the queen. Oh,
Oh,
okay,
but he.
goes for the check. This is a very good move.
I
This
see.
discover here, instead of just taking the but white knows what black's doing. White just puts the rook. Okay, but this is endgame. Still, the white king is still watching over that rook there. You can't take. That's the thing. When you put the white king or any sort of king behind another piece, attempting to block a fork, it does not accomplish much. And now I think with two pawns, if the king escorts one of the pawns to the other side to get, the promotion, this could be good for white. Because as soon as that pawn hits that last square there, it could change into another piece.
Right, right.
This is the usual dance, though, and time is running out.
15 seconds, bro.
Yeah,
15 seconds.
this is endgame for you. You go there, I go there.
This is usually
Yep.
the part I make a lot of blunders if I'm playing chess.
This is the part where you have to practice. People usually practice endgame to make sure they don't make mistakes in these parts. So I'm not entirely sure how much training these people have undergone. But so far, the end games I've seen have been pretty solid, I guess. I mean, especially from that last game we saw, how they pulled that win there with, 20 seconds on the clock. That's pretty impressive.
Oh, that was very impressive. That was by Harlif, one of our. I mean, he's won the last few
Well,
chess tournaments that
well,
we've had
let's say
the
it's
last
it's
years.
not too surprising then that he was able to pull that one out.
Yeah, I mean, he
But
keeps saying he's a bit rusty, but that was quite impressive playing, I would say.
I mean, yeah, playing isn't perfect, but of course, that's the beauty of chess. All those mistakes lead for unique games where you don't see it anywhere else. Very seldom do you see a game that is similar to another. But this one looking like it's gonna go out to the clock here. The players are kind of just moving their pieces around because there's not really a way to end this game. I feel it's just you check me, I move away. You check me, I move away. Because the options are very limited. White will not be able to promote their pawn because Black's queen will literally just stare down every every possible venue that they could move towards. And yeah, this game's gonna end here. 4 seconds left. The question is, who does it go to? All right, right move by Black there, just taking more material, giving White time to think. What are you gonna do? Yeah.
Time's running out.
Yeah, see, they're just moving their king left, right, left, right, left, right. And now this king, this black king,
Oh,
yep, and
that's
there
it.
it
There
is.
it is. There it
Black is
is.
victorious. So you see here, before we move away from the
Oh,
screen, can you
okay.
go back to this?
Okay, who was it?
Well, regardless, it's fine. I'll just explain what was happening there. That black king moving forward. Oh, is this the game?
Yep, this was the game.
All right. You see him slowly moving the black king forward to that nearer to the other pieces. What I was explaining earlier, all those squares, you can imagine all the squares around the king as like its area of influence. It doesn't have to kill or take any of the pieces around it, but it can. So when it moves up there, the white king, can only move to the pieces on the top right, to the right, and all those other pieces, but all those other spaces, but everything else is blocked off. So the king can be a very active member, especially in endgame. Early on, he doesn't do anything; he just castles and he hides. But at least for most chess games, because people usually utilize those kinds of openings where the king has the castle, so you can develop the rook. But yeah, great games so far. Great games. I think we saw the endings to this game and the game with your friend. Not entirely sure about anything else. So the next round's starting in 2 minutes. I don't know. What do you think about the game so far?
I mean, we've seen some pretty interesting stuff, I think. We've also seen quite a variance of skill, I suppose.
Yeah, you could say some players seem to be going through the motions. They know what the opening pieces are, what the openings of like e4 meet with e5. I haven't seen a Sicilian defense or like a French defense where you kind of just put the I don't know, black pawn on e3 or something very simple. But I like it. This is casual chess. No one's really, the prize isn't like billions or thousands of dollars or like a title. It's a medal and a few euros, but I like that the players are still going at it, not just giving up when there's 20 seconds left. So yeah, I can't wait to see it in a minute. We're gonna continue with the second round, and this is Swiss. You might want to explain to people how Swiss works, Aman,
Sure,
so that they have a better idea.
that's absolutely no problem. So in the Swiss tournament, you have, well, in our case, we have 12 players, so there will be 6 concurrent matches at the same time. And in Swiss, the theory is that after a while, or after the first game at least, the players will be matched with an opponent with a similar skill to them. And how it works is if you win a match, then you get 1 point. If you are draw, then you get half a point. If you lose, then you get 0 points. So after a round, the system will calculate who is the best opponent for you for the next round, and you will be matched up with them. And it goes on and on and on until the end of 5 rounds in our case.
Yeah, so it's kind of like an autonomous sort of thing in itself, the way it works. So you can't really think like, oh man, I really got some rotten luck in that Swiss tourney, because eventually you just match up to people who you should be playing against. And here we go, kicking off into the next round. So let's see where your friend Harlef is. Harlef is against Mew Mew Ginger. Well, Harlef is only, what? Oh, maybe he just made a new account? 1500? Is that what I see?
Probably. Yeah,
Probably a
that
new
seems to be
account.
the
Maybe he's in the esports community, we'd call it smurfing. Maybe he's not showing his true account. So right here, we'll just see. Oh wow! Can you go to game? That looks like game 8 there. This. Can we go back to the start? Just go back to the first few moves. Want to see how this develops? So just go through the moves. All right. So okay, standard opening. Yep, the knight's watching over center square, already taking piece. All right, knight moves, knight takes, queen takes. This is actually a very aggressive opening from white because, as you can see, although it offered more material, it has already advanced the queen and the bishop, and they already castle first. So you could say white has the initiative here. Black, on the other end, you can see on black's side, right? It only has a pawn who has not moved forward so far, and none of its other pieces other than the knight are being developed. Of course, here threatening to push the queen back. I don't really see a reason for white to do anything drastic. Yep, so just move it back, still threatening that square. Because you see that pawn there on the D square for black, right? D3 is not being supported by anything. It's being supported by the bishop from that original square on that F square, but that's about it. And if the bishop were to maybe move up in front of the king, it would be a more active room because then it would be watching over the knight
Just like
as well.
this.
It would be staring. Yeah, same thing, staring through that diagonal, right?
Right.
Because you can envision right now the white queen is looking not down the diagonals only, but also the lane that it's in. So that pawn that's in front of it is the only thing stopping it from eating the bishop, eating the king, a discover check, all sorts of things. So white is in a very favorable position. And like I said, offers up the pawn. I can take 2 of your pieces, or you can move it, and then you're okay. So there you go. I think that's the better play from black, offering to take the queen instead, or pushing the queen somewhere else. Because if you just take with the pawn, you sacrifice your pawn structure. Nothing is defending the pawn that was moving up earlier. So I say white is more aggressive, the more proactive. Black is more reactive in terms of this match. So let's see the other matches right now.
Oh, the other matches, okay.
So the one that we just looked at was match 8, or rather match 5. Rather, if we're looking at the numbers, I was looking at the players.
I mean, it's easier for me to see what you're talking about if we refer to the numbers on the top left, I suppose.
Okay, sure. We'll keep doing that then. I'd like to go to match 10 then, if we're going by the numbers.
10, okay.
So you see here the pawn structure. I was talking about pawn structure earlier.
Right.
White had a very odd pawn structure. Yeah, you could see there was a pawn that was stacked on top of another. That's because they just took from black's pawn. And you can see white has a very strong middle structure. They have that little pawn structure looking like a ladder, you see, leading all the way up to the center squares. Every pawn there is protecting every other pawn right behind it,
I mean this one right
right?
here, right?
Yes, that's a very strong pawn structure. If you can move the bishop, if the white moves its bishop, exactly like I was going to say right there, moves it up, protecting the diagonals instead, this is a very strong position for white. In comparison to black, this doesn't matter too much. You could just move another piece to defend this. You could move the knight, in fact, yep, exactly as I was going to say, to move in front of the bishop, threatening, yo, come over, take the piece. I don't mind eating a little bit of a bishop. But black has done something interesting here. Black has moved its pawn upwards, maybe trying to break the pawn structure. And it has. All right, black has broken white's pawn structure, making it a little less uh, stronger. Yep, and then the knight moves forward, threatening to take it as well. This is a very good move for black's knight. If it takes the pawn, it also threatens the bishop, which is on that white square, staring down that diagonal. And I think that's what black might be doing, because it develops the knight, and it also, yep, exactly as I said. So now that white bishop is being threatened, and if black gets to take that bishop, it threatens even more pieces, because then it eats the pawn that is watching the left diagonal of the king. I think black is in a better position here, honestly. Yep, exactly
Ah, I
as I said, this
see.
forks other pieces. This forks the rook as well, and then the pawn on that other side.
This one?
My goodness, this is a deadly, deadly knight here. This knight has done so much work for black. Yeah, I don't know. Of course, the queen moving up doesn't want to. Wow, my god. I think this is still very good for black. Black has eaten so much material and it still has all these other pieces, but they haven't developed. Let's see how black carries over from here. I feel like this game, this particular match here between Akita and Hatara has gone blow for blow. They've just gone back and forth. Let's see some of the other matches. We can come back to this later.
Sure.
Oh my goodness, what is happening there in Game 9? Daniel versus Brian. What is happening?
Oh, quite the development here.
This game has developed very quickly. As you can see, both sides have castled. We got a check here. Both sides have castled. White going to king side, same with black. Absolutely no knights, as you can see. Usually the knights, if they are able to survive until later on, they're pretty useful because they cover squares that the other pieces can't. But you can see for this match, all the knights are out. Material is looking balanced for the most part because both sides have a bishop, both sides have the queen, but both queens are on the opposite side harassing the king. So I'm not entirely sure how this game is going to go. And you can see white's rooks are not active at all. They're just in the corners because, then it means white did not castle here. White has just moved its king to that square. Because if it castled, the rook would have already been nearer to the center. Okay, so pawn takes. That is a very forward white pawn. Okay, so it threatens here. Not entirely sure what white can do to save its queen yet because of that little fork there. Protecting the rook, which is threatening the queen right there. I'd say black is more favored in this position. Its rook is more active. If black moves its second rook into that same file, if it moves all the way over there, yeah, that'll be kind of a recipe for disaster because there's so many pieces protecting each other, and the queen on the forefront, which can threaten all sorts of different angles. So yeah, this is, and you can see right here, white actually can't take that pawn. White can't take that pawn because the queen is watching over it. That pawn on F, the F square right
Pawn on
there.
F, this
White
one.
cannot take it with the queen. Yeah, white can't take it with the queen because the queen is already blocking it. If white takes, that's an easy queen for black. And I don't know, this game's looking like a black win from here. So we'll keep our eye out for Brian here. Brian and Daniel, the black seems to be winning. So let's see the other games here. We still have 6 games, so no one's snuck out a win yet.
Yeah, it's a bit too
Not like
early.
the last time. Yeah, so that was game 10, yes? Or
Yeah, that
oh no,
was.
no, that was
That's
Daniel
game.
and Brian.
Yeah, that was game
Yeah.
9.
All right, so let's go to all right, go to game 1. Go to game 1.
Okay.
Game 1's pretty humorous. As you can see, both kings are just staring down at each other because they castled on the same side. And see, this is the opposite of the last game. both rooks are relatively well developed. They're kind of close to each other. Rooks, I would say, work better in pairs or with other pieces. If they're just in a corner, they're not really doing anything. So, but I feel like this is sort of a standstill because black has this pawn structure, not only protecting the king, but also controlling those center squares. There's just a lone pawn for white, not being covered by anything but the bishop, which is all the way over on B2, it looks.
Yep.
That's all the B2 pawn is doing. The B2 bishop is doing is watching over that pawn. But that pawn is pretty strong. It controls a lot because the queen isn't allowed to move forward. So, but it looks like these guys, yeah, the queen is in a good position. Black queen particularly, white queen staring down that pawn on the E square there. So this one might take a while because the rook's already developed. The king is in a safe position. No drastic moves need to be made. Yeah, so see, this is a conservative move. All it really does is bring that forward, and it just threatens to push the bishop back while still watching over the pawn. So I'd say it's a conservative move, but also it still accomplishes some sort of progression. Black has to respond here, or they could just let it be because the pawn is still watching over that bishop. That pawn on the A square, A5, still watching over the bishop on the B square. But yeah, this game's going to take a while. Let's go look at some of the games.
Sure thing.
And somebody has sneaked a win.
Oh, so early in the game too. I think that was game number... I forgot. It was game with Daniel, basically.
Game 1 again, no? Wasn't that game 1?
No, it was the game with Daniel earlier. I think it was game 8 or whatever. Either way, it was this one.
Oh, Daniel and Brian? They're not here anymore, right?
Yeah, it was this one. Do you want to look at it?
Alright, go to the last moves. Yeah, go to the last moves. Let's see how this actually ended. So this is already far on our way. Let's go back to what we kind of saw earlier. Yeah, keep going back. Alright, so we were somewhere around here where the queens were on both sides trying to attack. So keep moving forward. Alright, bishop moves forward, bishop being pushed, bishop takes, bishop moves forward, queen moves, threatening, queen moves, check. Oh yeah, so we were around here. This is exactly where we were around when we last saw them. So I'll keep moving forward. Let's see what moves white does. So white moves there to, yep, okay, they takes, yep, and the rook move forward, rook takes. Ah, yes. See, this is, okay, move back one move. This is what I mentioned earlier. This file with the queen and the rook is so threatening because like you've seen in previous matches, the king can't take. In these situations, because of the support of another piece, the king is kind of useless. The king can't do anything.
Right.
So, yeah, and then their queen is not in an active situation because go to the next move. After queen takes here, this is check. And king can't move quite literally anywhere. This is the last move, correct?
Yep, this is checkmate.
Yeah, queen can't move anywhere. White queen is useless because it can't take the rook earlier because it was a check. This is very well played by black because you can see, unlike white, which has one of its rooks literally sitting in the corner, black has moved its rook over to support the black king and the black queen in its assault. So I'd say this was very well played. This was won by...
I think it was won by Daniel.
Yeah, very well played by Daniel. I like it when players really utilize, and someone has sneaked another game.
Oh, not sure which one that was though.
Don't worry, let's just look at the matches that we have right now. So let's go to, yeah, the match 3 is still kind of slow. You can see a lot of the players have kind of opted to play kind of in the same way. Game for Azam and Very Good Boy, they've both castled to the same side, same on both sides. So let's look at Harlif, your friend again, Harlif and Mio Ginger. This is the opposite. Well, no, they're castle, but this is now on queen side, I feel. So this is on the other side. And you see both sides here, both rooks are not in kind of active position. They're both, one rook is from the castling, so you can see that rook is on the side, more active side, but the other rook is in the corner doing nothing. And this is a discover check from black. Very good. Very good discover check. Did you just go back or what? What happened there?
No, I didn't click anything. Do you want to go back?
Are there? Yeah, I thought that was a discover check. Yeah, go back. Okay, so keep going. Let's go back to...
This is already live.
Yeah, so that was a check from the queen there on the white king. I don't like this position from white. Because white does not have a pawn structure protecting its king. Because you can see the only thing that's standing between anyone else, between the king and everyone else is just that one pawn and the rook and the knights that are around it. If you look at black's king, not only does it have the bishop, which is staring down the diagonals, it also has the rook on its side and then two pawns standing right beside it as well. It controls a lot more space. White has kind of overstretched, I feel. I'm not entirely sure what it did with the pawn on the H square, leading it all the way over there by itself. Maybe it pushed out a piece or something. But usually when you castle, this is kind of just a concept. When you castle, you want your pawn structure to remain there to protect the king. Because when you start moving pieces around too much, you see, as opposed to black, where the pawn structure, even though they move forward, they're being supported by one another. So they're not entirely weak. In fact, all of black's pawns are being supported. You can see the kind of like a ladder formation. Just it's easier to understand that if they're in a ladder, that usually means that another piece can eat whatever is trying to take that piece, as opposed to black, where you have this isolated pawn structure here in the center, one pawn all the way over on the right, on the H lane there, and then the rest are just kind of sitting in their original positions. So I feel like Harlif is in a better position here. Although it doesn't seem like the rooks are being that active this game. Neither is White's bishop. White's bishop is still on the original square, as you could see on C1. So I feel like Harlif has the opportunity. It seems like Harlif just takes a bit more time usually. You can see his clock is always down, but he's always in a better position. But I feel like we can look away for a moment. I hope they don't steal away a win. Let's see what's happening. I think this is the amount of players we had earlier. Because two people have.
There's only been 2 victories so far, I think.
So right now it's showing Yuman Haikal and Sushil. Oh my goodness, what's happening in this game? Wait, go to that game.
Okay.
Yeah, go to that game. What's happening?
I'm not quite sure.
Okay, so what happened here is, if I had to take a guess, White had already castled, but because Black's queen is missing, I'm assuming Black's queen had come over, checked a few times, which is why the king is in such an awkward position. So right now, this is quite literally the most separated I've ever seen someone's defenses, because White's pieces, all its important pieces like the knight, the bishop, his pawn structures are all on the left side, and they're all being attacked by a rook. Oh, but rook takes. I feel like this is just a take. But you see, the pawn structure of White is so odd, so awkward, because these pawns stack on top of each other. They don't support each other. If another piece comes over and just takes it, nothing's going to support it. It's just going to be eaten, and then the game, not to say it's over, but that's not a favorable position. However, White does have more active pieces. White has a rook over Black. So I feel like White is in a better position, even though it's a very awkward. I feel like this is one of those chess puzzles, that they give you, like, solve this in X moves.
Right.
I don't know how I'd solve this because this looks super weird, but I think White is still ahead here. White can probably win this. Let's glance over at the other games. Let's make sure we're not missing anything.
Sure thing.
All right. Harlif, they're still there. The black pawn structure, as you can see from afar, is still the same for Harlif. He's still in a favorable position. What's happening with Very Good Boy and Dominic? Let's see that. My God. So here you see it's an advanced pawn structure. Black is slowly moving its pawn structure forward, and you see those pawns around Black and White's kings is protecting it, because every diagonal beyond the pawn is protected, and every pawn behind another pawn protects that pawn. So now it's moving it forward slowly but surely. This is also another case of endgame. A lot of endgame practice is practicing to mate or find a better position with just pawns, kings, and then maybe a queen or a bishop or a rook. So this is pretty standard. I feel like if these players have played these positions a lot, these kinds of end games, should be fine. We should see fast moves. There's still 2 minutes on the clock for each. So I feel like these players will be fine. Though these kinds of situations don't usually make for the most interesting matches of chess when it reaches these points, because it's kind of well thought out. I feel if you do the practice, as long as you do the practice, you won't make too many mistakes. But everyone's human.
Right. So basically, there's something which they would practice a lot of, these kinds of endgames.
Yes, this is because the thing is, if let's say you're learning chess, after you learn maybe what the pieces do, maybe some normal openings, you're not going to learn gambits and stuff because that's risky. Okay. Usually, then you'd learn about what's like advantages. Oh, and
Oh,
it
white
seems like
resigned.
black is victorious, white resigned. And yeah, as I was gonna say, black has a better pawn structure. Black has a queen, so black is more open. What happened to the last few moves? Can you go back?
The queen was taken from black. I think that's when.
Yeah, because you see, the queen is in no position of being supported by anybody. If you
Right.
look at black's pawns, the pawn structure that black has is not only protecting themselves but also protecting the squares that the queen could move for. See those squares around the queen, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, those black squares particularly because that's the diagonal that the pawns are looking at.
Oh, these ones. Okay.
White queen can't go there. Yeah, so this is all free reign for black queen, and white queen is caught in the middle. Is caught quite literally in between every other pawn, so it's not a good position for her. And I'm not surprised that white resigned. Black was in a better position there. Yeah, so let's see the other games though. But yeah, usually, yeah, the game that we finished was the one that we just saw.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, when you're practicing chess, a lot of end game you're going to practice is those kinds of games. They give you like a board state where it's just king, a few pawn structures maybe, and then maybe a piece. So first, I think you would practice with maybe uh, bishop and then rook, and then maybe two rooks or two bishops or a knight, and then you would go with queen, and it would get more complicated. But that's the idea: is you slowly learn what you're able to do with what pieces you have, and then you continually add on to it.
All right. So
So
it
let's
builds
go
up,
to
builds up on previous
yeah, it
knowledge.
builds up. It builds up. It's progressive because you don't want to throw a player straight in. I mean, of course, if you're just playing chess, that's what happens. You're thrown in, and you have all these pieces. Slowly but surely, you lose all of them, and then you're left with like 10 pieces or 5 pieces, and then you have to win, or you have to make sure you don't lose. So let's go to game one here. So here, pawn structure for black very solid. All those pawns, along with that rook, means no piece can come over to that kind of file there, that not H file, that 8 file, that whole row. No one can come over. All the pawns are supported. The king is watching over every pawn, and white does have the queen and the rook and the thing and the knight. And the thing about knights in this situation, right, is the knights control a very unique amount of space because of the L shape that they bring. Not any other piece can control that amount of space. Yeah, and it goes for every other piece. It's attacking the pawn on that rook, yep, and it goes over. So, and the queen is supporting the knight. And actually, white is in a little bit of a oopsie daisy, I'd say it. Unfortunate, because the white queen is kind of being pinned by the black queen here. If the knight is pushed away, let's say he retreats the knight, which I don't think white can afford to do, then white loses its queen. There's
Right.
not a lot white can do here. I think white is about to lose here by time. Very well played by black, honestly. Because you see, that's the power of and I feel like you just take queen here. I think because you're not going to get a better position. Yep, but that's fine. That's advantageous because black still has that pawn moving forward. And you see, if you look over, right? Oh, interesting. I thought that black was going to keep the rook there to eat. Yep, that's what I was going to think. You have to eat the promoting pieces right now. And black just moves back, threatening the knight, supporting the pawn, and now moving forward. Yep. So you see the king is blocking the black pawn on that square. Okay, so
Rapid
this is
moves,
proper
yeah.
endgame. Now this is the proper endgame. You only have 3 pawns, and these are usually the pawns you have from your castling. And now it's just what moves can you make to further your piece. Right here, the king is supporting that pawn, pushing the knight back. Ooh, and the white king is not in the best position. The white king has no squares that it can move to retreat, other than if it moves left and then moves diagonal. Okay, now it made some space. This is pretty tight. I think we'll stay on this game. This game's about to end pretty quickly. And this is a game by Azam and Kater Virdi. Oh, pawn takes, pawn takes, pawn takes, pawn takes, and then this is check here. I think
white
black.
resign.
Yeah, white resigns. So go back a few moves here, because this is honestly, this is where it's like the quick decisions. You have 10 seconds on the clock. What are you gonna do? White moves forward its pawn, right? If I'm not mistaken. Yep. White moves forward its pawn 2 squares. Black takes, because black has all these pawns watching over this diagonal, this white square that just was taken right here, right? Yep. There's not a lot that white king can do. So white king just kind of fumbles. You go over and take it with another pawn takes it, and it threatens your king again. What are you gonna do, right? Yeah. So white takes, and then black takes. What does white king do? If white takes, if you might be thinking to yourself, maybe white king takes pawn. No, because then rook takes knight, rook takes more material, and game is pretty much over.
Oh, I see.
So
Okay.
because when you check, you have to the move has to be to protect your king. But this is already kind of forcing material by black, because black is like, yeah, you're gonna protect your king, you can take a pawn, whatever, but your knight is gone, and there's no
Right, right.
world where the black rook is gonna be eaten by the white king if black has more material. So very well played by black here. This was won by Cater, right?
Yeah, by Chateau Fear D, I think.
Oh, Chatur. Oh, the Malay Chatur. Okay, no
Chateau
problem. Let's see
Chateau.
how many more games are left.
There's only
We
one
have one
left.
game left. Ireland, they're still going. 20 seconds on both clocks. Okay, we're
Oh, this
catching
is
it.
interesting. This is interesting.
So it seems like your Harlif's pawn structure is still here, and the white king is somehow hugging the black king. But these are some of these games, some of these end games you never get to. Whoa, what's happening with white here? I think white might have blundered. That could have been a takes from black there, I feel. I'm not entirely sure why he didn't take. Oh wait, can you go back one move?
Sure.
Okay, so he took. Okay, he was moving to take material. Very good, because that white pawn was controlling quite a bit of space. Oh, and this is check. This is check right here. Yep, king has to move, and that's taken. I think that's over. I think black wins here. See, it's again the same concept as the last game. When you put your opponent in a check, it offers you an opportunity to force material, because they can't take. When they have to move their king and you're in a position where you can take their piece, that's game for you. That's like super good.
See, this is interesting because I saw earlier that Harlif was 15 seconds with the opponent's 2 minutes, but now he turned it
Yeah,
around somehow.
it's always like that. I mean, when you're in a better position, the optimal choices you have are a lot less stressful because you've already changed your pieces, and that's
Oh,
checkmate.
amazing, amazing.
Very well played by Harlif. And yeah, I mean, it seems like you can see kind of the same pitfalls that the players are falling for in putting themselves in situations where the pieces aren't developed or they have odd pawn structures that are very weak, and then they're left to be kind of forced into trades that are really unfavorable. When you're forced to take a bad check and then your king or your queen or your like really important square bishop or your rook is taken, like that can spell game over, honestly.
Yeah, I see.
Very interesting game still. So what are the kind of rankings here we're seeing here? So we have Sushil, Harlif, Chatur. These are kind of the leading vanguard here with 2 wins
Yeah.
on all of them, right?
I think this is sorted based on position.
Oh, started based on position, I see. Or are these 1 win? Because I'm not entirely sure what the numbers are there for, or that's just showing what wins and what games they were. Okay,
Right,
I see.
right. So these two, they won their first 2 games. Azham won his first
Yep.
but lost his second, and so on and so forth.
Okay, I see. Very interesting. So we're gonna move into this next round in about 2 minutes or so.
Right.
And I think, yeah, I think that the players have kind of shown that. I mean, this is usually what you see, especially in. We were talking about this before the stream started about the boom on Twitch about chess and the interest. Is a lot of things when people start learning how to play chess, they learn how to play it from the beginning, and the openings are really easy to remember. But mid game towards end game, I'd say is where the heavy lifting is for chess. Because if you don't practice end game, which of course it sounds really boring, and it's not the movie End Game. There's no fucking there's no Iron Man. There's no Thor coming to save the
really?
day.
So Avengers aren't gonna
No,
assemble?
no. You're left with your pieces, and you gotta figure out what's the best move. But mid game and end game in chess is really where the heavy lifting is. You have to do your homework, kind of practice, but it's also where the fun is, because when you learn from your mistakes, I mean, you can see the patterns that people are falling for, right?
Right, right.
So and then when you see the patterns that they're falling for, you can go earlier and see what decisions they made that lead them to those situations. And that's how you really improve in chess. When you watch games, watch your own games as well, particularly for these players. Watch your own games and see what kind of mistakes you make that lead you to those positions where you make a blunder, or you're in a position where there's not a better choice to make, but you're still losing. So, yeah, very, very informative, interesting game so far.
Very interesting. So you can see how much time and effort these players put in to learn the game before
Most
joining this
definitely,
tournament.
most definitely. Yes. With players like Harlev, like I mentioned earlier, he might take more time, but when you're put in a situation where you're comfortable, you know this end game, or you know this mid game that leads to this particular end game, you're not stressed because you know what's going to play out. There's only so many things the opponent can do, and they may not have practiced for it. So you're already in a position that you're favorable.
Right.
So in round 3, here we go. This is round 3, ladies and gentlemen. We only have 2 rounds after this. So we'll go. So Harlev is matched up with Dominic.
Oh, very
Chator with
interesting.
Sushil. So those are the top guys, and you can see the game's already started. Ooh, finally see. That might be a French defense or a Sicilian defense on Sushil and Chatur. Let's go over there. So you see here, right? He opens it, and this might be kind
You
of
want to go
leading to a
back?
gambit. Yeah, go back a little bit. Go back a little bit. So we go forward. This is a standard opening here, yeah. And then, but the thing is, white takes. White, and then black is offering more pieces, more pieces. This is actually more for a gambit, closer to what a gambit would be, because there's all this open space that black has created and white has taken. Ooh, but white kind of turned it around with that bishop right there. Bishop on b5 there is very threatening. It's staring down the diagonal. The pawn is already there looking over. Yeah, but that takes. If you take pawn takes, and it's not the best. But then black's pawn structure is very weak. Yeah, white opts to develop its pieces. So you see, just because black had offered up all those pawns, I'd say black is still in a better position. Both knights are already all the way up there. White has to right there use a conservative move, protect its pawn, protect his bishop, and now has to spend another conservative move. This is a very good. I forgot what exactly that kind of gambit or that sort of opening is, but it's usually more of a trap kind of thing in chess when you offer up more material, because the pawns early on, they're tempting to take. But if usually you want to move your pawns out not to take material, but to develop your pieces. White has fallen for the trap, and black has been able to develop all of its pieces beautifully. As you can see, both bishops staring down these huge diagonals, threatening pawns and knights and being supported by the pieces, and the queen is now being brought into play. This is disastrous for white. And this is who against? This is Chatur versus Sushil.
Right.
Sushil just kind of, I feel like took advantage of Chatur. Chatur didn't notice, maybe.
That was very
Didn't
interesting to see.
Didn't notice that the gambit was being offered there. And keep in mind, it's not always a lose situation if you take a gambit. If you know how to play around it, it's still possible to win. But it seems like white has kind of been being on the back foot here, because black has really taken advantage, developed his pieces great. And you can see if black castles to king side, rook is now in action. Rook can stare down that e file, and it's just disaster.
So what happened with the gambit was basically black offered some pieces to develop better.
Yes, develop its pieces in exchange for the pawns. And the thing is, this usually traps a lot of new players, because new players are like, "You're just giving me a piece. Okay, I take." And then suddenly their queen is up, the bishop's up, the
Yeah,
knight's
I
up,
see,
and then
I
now
see.
you're thinking, I'm kind of screwed, or what am I gonna do? So that's why. But like I said, it's not always a lose-lose situation, but it offers so much advantage. Black is already, of course, both sides have castled, obviously, but white is a lot more confined. You can see the pawn structures are still the original shape. They haven't developed. The rooks aren't out yet. The queen is all the way in there. There's only so much space the queen can go. Yep, such a conservative move, only protecting what? A pawn. Meanwhile, their queen is protecting a bishop, a pawn, knights, all sorts of different pieces. And now both rooks are going to be online for black. This is very well played by Sushil. And I think Sushil is in a better position, but we can always come back here. This is kind of the
Sure.
openings. All right, glad to know no one sneaked the win so far.
That would have been insane.
Insane, but not unheard of.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Let's go to Daniel and Mew Mew Ginger here. So here you can see is I don't think a gambit was here. Can we look back at the start? Let's see how this game started out. All right, so pawn goes up. Ooh, interesting open. I think this is a Sicilian defense or a French defense. One
was
of the
it because
two.
of the bishop?
No. Go back. It was because of the first pawn move. So in response to this, usually people will push the pawn forward to take the center square as well. But he opts to move this to open the bishop to the right side here. This is a different kind of defense, yes. One of the popular ones for black as well. A lot more conservative. Yeah, and then you see it's controlling the squares that white would move towards before white even moves forward. Right? The pawn on D hasn't even moved forward, or pawn on D the white pawn hasn't moved forward to the fifth.
Okay.
Yeah, hasn't even moved forward, already moving the pawn up to kind of protect that square. This is a very conservative kind of defense, but still works. As you can see, black is in a pretty good position. Let's move forward. Yep, white develops. Knight moves forward, castles. Knight moves back, protecting that square,
Okay, this is where we
opening the
are.
room. Yeah. So you see, move back two moves earlier. So right here, when bishop moves forward like this, black has already protected because the bishop is threatening that diagonal, offering to, or not offering, but threatening to take that knight. But of course, queen is protecting. Moving that, and the real reason you move the pawn forward there, right there, on H there, is so that if bishop takes, the pawn on E can take. So that's the whole reason, because if you leave that pawn down there, no one can protect it, right? So you purposely move the pawn forward so that your pawn can take. You develop pieces. So yeah, let's see how they move now. Let's keep moving. Yeah, develop. This is pushing the pawn out again, a more active position. Yeah, and I'd say black played this pretty well. I feel like white did a pretty standard opening, but black has played this defense really well. Of course, some of its pieces aren't open yet, but there's so much space that they can open. The knight can move out. All right, so this is kind of the reason why white wants to move its bishop so forward, because now I can threaten to take that rook all the way there in H, that H square. Of course, protecting the knight there, but yeah, this is, as you can see, black's pawn structure, very interesting, already kind of expanding, but there you go, first piece taken, but that's all that white bishop does. Now it's in a position where it's not protecting anything, and white can move, and yep, and there it is. If black moves that pawn so that white's bishop is kind of trapped, because if white takes there, it's dead, because the knight is already controlling it there on the G square. So yeah, I'd say black is playing it pretty well. Yeah,
so, I mean, if the bishop goes back here, the knight would be captured.
Knight will be captured. Not only does knight capture bishop there, knight develops, because then knight is also threatening other pieces. Because it's kind of economy. You want to make sure whatever move you're taking, do you value your rook on that square that much? Obviously, black says, no, you can take it. I'll move my piece forward in exchange if you come back and try to take it. Yeah.
Very well played by Mimio Ginger.
Yeah, very well played by black. Very, very good. So let's go see these other players here, because it's kind of a slow-moving, slow pace, but very standard game. That was Daniel and Mimio Ginger. Let's look at Hatara and Brian.
That is.
Yeah, that's right there. So right here, you can see they castled. Black castle, white castle, same side, and you see the same kind of pawn structure, right? There's the bishop in the middle for that respective square, and then the pawns kind of arching around it, right? It was very good defense, because whatever squares that the pawns can't control, the bishop is defending. And then the pawns on the sides are being protected by the king. So this bishop move here is to protect the bishop, but the bishop is still being protected by the white queen as well, you can see. Yeah, so that takes. It takes, but it can also take, and there's nothing that's really stopping the queen from taking there. Yep, as I said before.
Right.
Of course, because of this pawn structure, the queen can't just move over and take. Yeah, because of the pawn structure. It's very good pawn structure. Of course, black's queen could be more active, I feel, because black's queen is kind of just staying there in its original position. So is the rook. But I feel personally in this situation, white is in a better position, because white's rooks are closer to the center. They're kind of more developed. All right, black is responding, maybe trying to threaten to attack that square, but it's not protecting anything. Because you see because white's rook is all the way over there in the center, protecting the pawns, protecting that central kind of square. And then if something happens to white's pawn on that square, it can probably just eat or discover threat on the enemy's rook, because it's under the same file, as you can see.
Right, yeah. So it would take, and then they would threaten this rook then.
Yes, exactly. So it's on, the onus is on black here to kind of do something, because white is in a favorable position. Moving his piece back, okay, now it watches a lot more space, and it's not as threatened if a piece moves forward. Yeah, interesting. Because now if the pawn, if bishop here, you can see the bishop on the D square, D2 here. And not D2, it would be D7. Black's bishop on D7 could have moved forward to try and threaten the bishop. That's why the bishop moved back, because now it's being protected by the king, by the rook. Yep. So pawn moves forward, trying to break the pawn structure here, you see. This move by white here is trying to break the pawn structure, kind of saying to black here, I don't want your pawns to be so nicely arranged.
Right, I see.
but black responds. The queen is more active now, moving forward, saying, take my pawn, bro. I bet you won't." But interesting game here by Hatara and Patara. Yep, and then as I imagine, bishop moving forward now because the threat from the black bishop is no longer as imminent because queen is now an active player. Yep, there's still black's pieces basically not only are protecting their own pieces but also kind of happening its own movement. But that's kind of the way chess is.
See.
When something dies, it could be a good thing or a bad thing.
Right.
So not much here. I think we can move to another game here. Let's see what else everyone else is doing.
Seem to be two
And
victories already.
in the time it took us to look at those games, two people have already won. And those would be the games
I
with
think that was Azhar,
Daniel's game is
Daniel.
yeah.
Yeah, it was these two.
My goodness, and Harley's game is done as well. Did
No,
they win
he's
that?
still going.
What
He's still
happened?
going.
Oh no, he's still going.
he just finished.
Well, as soon as I said that, yeah, I thought it was over there.
Oh, I think Dominic won that round. That is interesting.
Oh, let's go see that game then.
Do you want to look from the end or?
Yeah, let's move from the end. Let's see from where they ended off.
Let's move back a few places.
Okay, so from this position here, Harlef's white. Hasn't castled. Pieces, you can see bishop, knight, rook have not developed at all. Black has played really good games so far. Dominic here. Let's move forward. Let's see what he does. All right. Draws the pawn. Opens it up. Check. Have to move. Ooh. Okay, move back. Move back one piece. Okay, move back another move. This is really good by black because these two bishops here, you see these pair of bishops here, right?
Yeah, these two
are protecting so much space. Because attacking both diagonals. And in case you haven't noticed, maybe to the viewer who is watching, because of the development of the pawns on black, queen can't take. Queen can't move out. Queen is kind of trapped. A white queen, I mean.
The white queen, I see.
Because white queen can't take that bishop because there's a pawn protecting it right there.
As in, if it moves, bishop, I see. Okay.
It can't take both bishops. If it tries to take the bishop on the right, it's a discover check. You can't do that.
I see. Okay.
And it's being protected by the rook, and then also that other bishop, the bishop on the G square, is being protected by a pawn. This is just, I mean, I feel like if I saw this while they were playing, I would have said this is a disaster. This is Dominic winning, very favored, right? So let's see how the game ends, how Harlef goes. Yep, so king moves forward, takes. Oh, that's such a good piece. Taking knight there, and you still threaten that space, and you can take another pawn. Oh my. Okay, keep going. And then this was just when he resigned, right?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that at that position you just have to resign. None of your pieces are developed. All the pieces that were developed have already been eaten. Yeah, very well played by Dominic. I have to say that was very impressive.
That was amazing.
All right, let's go back. Let's see how many games. Yeah, you can. It just goes to show the kind of difference it can make when your pieces are developed and you're already on the attack. There's only so much your opponent can do. If they make a few mistakes, that's it. So right now it's Sushil and Chapter. Let's see what they're doing. So click on the game. You can see a full view here. Let's see what led them to this point. Go back a few moves. All right, keep going. Okay. All right, stop right here. So you see here, both rooks are already kind of developed. They're kind of moving towards the center, trying to make progress basically. So let's see what they do here. So rook moves forward, You see, the thing with rook, a lot of its power is actually not in taking instantly, it's the threat of taking. Because those black rooks offering to take not only whatever's in front of them, but offering to take whoever threatens to take the rook in response. Right? And white is not in that position yet. Now it is, but it's on a different file, you see. White is on that D file, and then black is on that E file. And the queens are on that other quadrant on the right side. So the white rooks aren't in the best position, but if they somehow open it up, maybe remove some pawn, remove some material, they could be advantageous. So let's see what happens here. All right, so trades, that actually opens the file, you see. Now that whole kind of column is open. So let's see what happens. Yeah, bishop goes back, still threatening, and now exchange material, takes, and you see white's queen is protecting the bishop, and the bishop is threatening not only the black queen, but protecting the rook at the same time. Wonderful move here. This is a great move by Chum. Very great move, and I think this is the last move, right? And then black resigns?
No, they haven't ended yet. This is the current state of things.
If it was me, I would have been like, shit.
As in, if you were black?
Kind of a neutral move from black, but it opens it up. Oh my! This is offered. You have to bring the rook back. It offers material. Yeah, move something back, takes, move another thing back. Say, it's disaster.
That's it. That's a checkmate.
That's all it takes. I mean, I already said if I was black, I'd resign. And a
Oh
few
man,
moves after, he resigns.
that was quite interesting to see though.
Yeah, I mean, but you can see the process that happens, right? When you're trying to move your pieces to be more active in that
Right.
process, material is lost, enemies make moves, and lo and behold, you lose games that fast. I said, was he
Yeah.
gonna forfeit, resign, and well, he did. All right, let's see what's happening. Hatara Batara, Brian. There's a very. This is approaching endgame, of course. Both boards,
Right. Right. At this point.
and let's look at Very Good Boy and Akida Mary. Let's look at them. They have a bit more material, a bit more interesting, but it's still endgame. So who's more favorable here, do you think, Aman?
Well, I would say black is more in favor here,
And why would you say
simply
that?
because it has better
Better
pieces on the
pieces?
board. Yeah.
That is true. And you can see this the White King on a pilgrimage.
It's
He's all the way
very
to
very
the other
interesting. I
side.
saw that too. How did it get all the way over there?
Let's go back a few. Let's go back a few moves. Let's see what happened. What happened to this king that led him all the way on this
He was
journey, this
threatening the
hajj?
queen, it seems.
Okay, so queen was in this very. This is a very threatening position with the black queen and the black bishop because
Right.
it's controlling so many squares,
Uh-huh.
right? So let's keep moving forward here. Let's see what happens. Yep, queen moves forward. King moves forward. King moves forward. Check, check, check. That queen and that bishop controlling so many squares, and the queen protecting the bishop. So, yo, if you want to take, bro. I'll take all day, right? So keep moving forward. Yep, check again.
So it
Yep, check again.
seems the king
Move.
was
Oh,
threatened.
beautiful. So see, the king kind of forced to dance forward, and yep, and then pawn up there, forced to move again. Ah, yes, 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 yes.
So he
Keep
was
going.
forced
Check,
to go on
check.
this great pilgrimage all the way to the other side.
It was not a voluntary decision. And now where we are now. So you said black is in a better position. After seeing the events that took place, I'd say yeah, black is in a
I
better
think
position.
it's pretty obvious at this point.
Yeah, and the thing is, White's king is separated so far away from his pawns that he doesn't like his area of influence of what he can threaten doesn't really matter that much
Right.
because other than maybe if black makes a blunder, then White can maybe take a piece with king, but this is looking like it's pretty easy for White. Oh, a little interesting. This is kind of offering to the queen, yo, come take this rook, offer. But no, black is not going to fall for it. And black can't take queen, and queen forks here. You see queen forks. Queen can either take the rook, queen can either take the knight. King is being threatened, king has to move. Rook is not protecting anyone other than the king, but the king, like queen's not going to take king there because rook is there.
Right.
So, yeah, and then, like I said, black is victorious. That's it.
Oh, okay. Checkmate. Oh,
Yeah, because king, you see, like I said, the squares
I
around the one
see.
square radius around the king is his area of influence. You can't threaten the queen there because the king is protecting it.
Right, right, right.
Yeah, so like that's the usefulness of the king when you're in an aggressive position when you're
I
trying to check.
see. I
The
see.
enemy king and the enemy knight, because you see, the knight is not in a position to check. In fact, I think this is one of the knights that it's literally quite impossible to check because it's a white square knight against
Right.
a king on the white square. It's not going to happen. But
Ah,
yeah, very well
okay.
played. Is
Okay, I
that
feel
all?
like you
What
rarely
about
see
the other?
something like this where the king goes all the way to the other side, right?
Yeah, it's kind of funny, but oh my god! As soon as we say that, there's this.
It's also
I
very
mean, this
interesting.
is okay. This is in every universe. This is black wins. Black has
And
a
there it is,
checkmate.
and there it is.
There it is. I was about to say, there's. This is one of the first, other than like practicing endgame with pawns or anything. This is one of the first that you have to practice. So king and queen versus just king.
Ah, okay,
Because
okay.
because the power of the king in that like 1 meter radius thing, like I said, that one square radius, and the queen, you just have to isolate the king into a corner or a quadrant, like black has done here, and it's pretty much game over.
Okay, very exciting.
All right. So what did we end with there? So Chator undefeated,
Right.
very impressive. Azam, Sushil kind of lost that round. That's unfortunate. Daniel 2 wins. Harlif 2 wins and a loss on.
That
Not
is
expected,
interesting.
I don't think.
I did not expect that personally, but he was
I didn't
saying
expect that
how
either.
he's been
He's a
quite,
bit rusty, maybe,
yeah, yeah, he hasn't played in a while,
but
and it's a rapid kind of
let's not
game.
but let's not take it away from Dominic. Dominic played really well that
That was
match. He
amazing,
very
actually.
very impressive performance, and you could see the cogs kind of turning when Hireliff kind of realized I'm just done here. I can't do anything, which is I mean, I feel like you're slowly starting to see the players come into their own. They're being
Yeah,
a lot more aggressive. They know what they're doing, which I like.
yeah.
Those end games where the king is pilgrimage to the other side. I think it's funny, but like that happens more often than you'd like to say. But usually at that point, you're kind of losing already. If your king is forced to go all the way over to another side of the board,
Right,
or you
right,
can't protect it,
right.
game's pretty much over.
Not much you
Usually
can
you'd
do.
see people resign. Yeah, at that point, before the king has to dance all the way over, usually people resign like, I have lost this.
This has been very exciting though, surprisingly, I would say. I mean, I don't really watch about a chess, so I wasn't really expecting much, but this has been quite
uh,
interesting.
I mean, it's. I feel like it's fun if you know what's going on. If you
Right,
just
right.
look at it and you don't know what's happening, you're just like, damn, that guy won. Damn. But when you have an idea of how chess is played and you're looking at the opportunities, the mistakes, everything, it makes it more thrilling
Right.
because you're thinking it. You're empathizing. You're in their shoes. You're like, I would have done something completely different, or
You
you're
said
saying
it.
I
You
would have
said it.
lost, or I would have resigned.
I really would have
Like
at
that.
some points. I really would have.
Yeah. I mean, like that one guy I said, like in that position, I would resign as black, and a few moves later, he resigns. So it's like same minds think alike, right? So we're
Very
about to be 30
interesting.
seconds. This is going to be round four, the
Yep.
semi-last round, where
Round
we
four
move
or
on to the
five.
last round. Yep.
I would say at this point it's still anybody's game. I mean, if
Oh,
Chatufi
of
loses the
course,
next
yes.
two rounds, then anybody can steal the crown.
Yeah, it's entirely possible for any of the players to still have a grab at the top few positions. I would not say anyone is counted out.
5 seconds. Here we go. Next round starting very soon.
And let's see. Let's see who's matched with who. Dominic with Chatur, very interesting.
Okay.
Harlef is with Sushil. So these were kind of the defeats of the last one were kind of being pitted against each other.
Right, right.
So
You can see the
no need to
Swiss
go
system
into
really
any of them.
working, right?
Yeah, it's working as intended, I'd say. The autonomous working system. But you see, this is kind of the standard opening so far. I don't see anything too surprising. I'm surprised Hatata and Patara, very good boy, haven't taken any moves yet.
This
Maybe
is
one went to the toilet. Who knows?
yeah, who knows what's going on here?
Yeah, but
Okay, they finally moved.
uh, finally moving. But it's pretty standard. It seems like there might have been some sort of gambit or maybe an offer being made on Brian versus Mew Mew Ginger. Can we go over there?
Sure. Should we go back a bit?
So let's go. Yeah, go all the way back. So opening pretty standard here. Yeah, before go there. Oh, interesting. So that's kind of a preemptive defense from Black there. Kind of going. You're probably going to take. If you're not going to take, I'll move forward. White's already developed its bishop here. Black is kind of slower in its development. And now this pawn structure you see is not defended.
You mean from black, right?
Yeah, from Black because this pawn in the center here. I mean, it's just free for the knight. I'm pretty sure knight can just take. But now the knight is brought up forward, protecting the pawn. So it's kind of offering a situation where do you want to develop? Do you want to let me develop? What are you going to offer in exchange? Because if the pawn gets to move forward, that black pawn, which is on the e file, if it moves forward, it threatens a lot of space, especially if another piece is being brought forward to support it. So interesting opening here. Yep, knight's moving forward. All right, pushing the knight back. See, this is kind of the strength of the pawn here. Yep, knight moving forward to here, threatening the enemy knight, also developing. Yeah, I feel like this is pretty standard stuff. Yep, takes. This is where material usually is going to be traded. And you see, not only does he take that center pawn, he also protects the pawn that's already pushed up all the way over there.
Mm-hmm.
This is a very advantageous, I'd say, for White. White has a very good position here. Black is also developing at the cost of a few pawns, but that's fine. Let's see the other players here. Let's see what's going on. I want to see Akida Mary and Iman Haikal. That looks pretty interesting.
Okay.
So you see here, go back a few moves here.
A few more?
So this
Or...
developed pretty standard. Go back one or two more moves still. Okay, so an early castle from Black, right? Moving forward.
Right.
You have an early castle. The knights are already developed on both sides. White has already castled earlier. And you see White is trying to activate the bishop there. The reason for that pawn moving forward, not only to solidify the pawn structure, it opens the black square white bishop to move forward. because you see that
I
bishop is
see.
all the way
Okay.
at the start. Yeah, it opens it up. You can move over. It threatens. It forks not only the knight, it threatens the queen right behind it. So very interesting. So let's see what happens. Yep. So takes this trading material. This is pretty standard. What happened next? Pushing forward, trying to push the knight back. Knight retreats, and then knight takes, offering material, pushing it back, going back. You see this kind of a dance. All right, this is where offering not really a trade but threatening. The bishop is protected. This is kind of where all right takes very quick, and this is where we are now. So I feel white played it as well as they could, although black might have started off a bit stronger maybe, but white has it might have lost the bishop, and black's bishop is kind of I feel like black's bishop is like it's a station there. It's like a police guard. That black bishop there
This
that's
one.
looking over that knight and that queen, yeah, is gonna be there for a while
I
until
see.
something happens.
And there's a knight
Yeah,
covering it too.
the knight and the bishop are gonna be there for a while. The material changing is gonna be at this other side. You see, black's queen hasn't done anything, so has white's queen. Technically, black could move its queen to be more active at this point. It's not being pinned by anything. It could move forward to be in a more active position. Threatened, but it's not being supported by a pawn structure. Yep. That pawn is being protected by the rook, so that could be interesting. But I feel like white's winning on material here. Most
Right.
definitely, white is material.
Yeah.
And white
Yeah.
has a better pawn structure because black only has the pawn structure on the castling, the one that's protecting the king, but white has this really nice ladder here that leads up into the center squares. That just means so much protection for white.
Right. Right. Zemiti also has control of like these squares here.
Yeah, these squares, whatever squares the knight takes. Yep, now it's pushing it up. So this is where all right, so takes, I assume takes as well. Yep. Queen develops in that take right there. So white queen is more active right now. The bishop is looking over that H square, looking very tasty. If you break that H square and get maybe one of the rooks or one of the queen, or maybe the queen there, it'll be very active.
Which bishop you mean?
The
This
black
one.
white's black bishop, yeah, looking over that H square. It's very tempting because if the queen can maneuver itself over there, yep, and then the knight is being retreated. There's a lot of space for white here, and black's pieces are very weighted defensively. And I think this is a kind of a white favorite game. I think Akita probably is going to win this. If I had to guess, let's keep that in mind. I say Akita's going to win this. Let's go look at another game.
Okay, no wins yet.
Nobody snuck a win. Oh, okay.
Good to know.
Let's look at Dominic. Dominic and Chateau. Okay. Black has not castled yet, but as you can see, every other piece other than the castles have been developed. Well, except that white square bishop for black there, still kind of sitting there doing absolutely nothing. Even if you move the bishop up to D2, not D2 rather, that'd be D7. The black bishop up to D7, it would at least be looking over. Yeah, so you move it into that white square there.
Okay.
It would at least be looking over the pawns. Right now, all it's doing is looking in one diagonal. It could be doing a lot more. That's what I'm saying.
I see.
Ooh, white in a very good position. The rooks are starting to take action now, staring down that D file that I just mentioned that the bishop could have been looking down. No longer an option.
This looks pretty interesting though.
Yeah, it's a good position. That's why the rook moved from its previous position because it's a threat. But I'd say if black could still castle here, unless black has taken a check. Black could still castle here, get the left side rook into the center, make it more active. I'd say white is in a better position in terms of development, but I wouldn't say it's a win-loss. Nothing's clear yet for this one. There we go as a check, but that check was kind of seen already. It's white can still take, but then white's king is moved forward. White could move to the corner, but I think that's a bad idea. So let's see what white does here.
Oh, he takes.
White takes. So he takes. So yeah, that's what I was saying. It's a little bit unfortunate of a move because knight is open to a check from there. And the thing about knight, you can see if knight moves in a way, let's say, okay, I was about to say if white's king moved back instead of diagonal, it would have been a check and it would have been a fork.
Okay.
Oh, but this is looking interesting. This is looking like a quick check here. And you don't want to go into the corner. If you go into the H2 square, I'm pretty sure there's a checkmate. Unless white does something here. H2 square, H2 square.
Oh, H2. So you mean if the
Yeah.
king goes there or if the queen goes there?
If the queen
Queen,
goes there, it would have
okay.
been checkmate. See, so that's why he moved the queen. And yeah,
Ah,
this is the
okay.
dance. This is
I
how you
see.
get. This is how you get the pieces to move around. Yeah. So white saw that move. Dominic saw the move. Moved the rook there. If you go back a little bit, yeah, go back a few moves. One more. One more. One more. One more. All right. So you see, Dominic saw the move coming, which is
Mhm.
why after this he moves the rook to make space for the king to retreat right there. See, because he saw the checkmate coming.
I see.
So and then when queen goes over, this is the checkmate. What would have been if the rook didn't move? So he moves out, and this is where the king kind of forced to dance around, move forward, run away. And this is where we are at now. I'd say black is a bit more favored, although I wouldn't put white out of it. We've seen Dominic kind of pull through, but he's not in a favorable position. That's all I'm going to say. His queen's not doing too much. The black queen is really threatening his position. Let's see any other players. I have a sinking feeling someone might have snuck a win. Never mind.
Apparently not yet, not yet.
Judging by the games, let's look at Harlif. I haven't seen Harlif and Sushil yet. Okay, so castling on same side, kind of a little bit of a mirror situation. Both queens are kind of looking down right
Okay.
past this pawn, but white has more of a defense because of the rook that's standing right behind it. The rook defending the queen is a bit more secure than I'd say what the pawn structure or the bishop or the knight. Yeah, and then you can see a lot of pieces you can see are controlling that E square, that E4 square, the pawn square right there. There's the knights on both sides, there's the queens. It's a very contested square. So I feel like this pawn is kind of a centerfold right now. Whether he falls or whether he stays will kind of determine who kind of goes forward because a lot of material can be sacrificed for just this one guy.
Right,
If a
right.
knight goes, knight takes, queen takes, queen takes. So
So when people
could
talk
be
about
any.
the center, it's these four squares, right?
Yeah,
That's the
these
one you
are.
want to
That's
control.
why when we mentioned why a lot of the games start trying to take those center squares because you can see the game's kind of a lot of maneuvering for pieces revolve around these center squares, which is happening right now.
Right.
All the pieces' movements are kind of converging on it, and you can see, yep, he knows. All right, let me just watch over it now. I'm threatening more pieces. Bishop staring down another bishop, but of course both are being supported by the pawns. But still,
Oops.
the knights and the queens are still watching over that square. And look, consolidating, moving the pawn forward, threatening to push the queen back. And then if the queen moves back, the pawn on that square, that H4, that E4 square, could move forward, threaten the knight, push more pieces back. So pretty good move by white, I'd say. Yep, and exactly as I said, moves back. Yeah, I'd say white is in a bit more of a favorable position here. This is Sushil, right?
Yep, switches on white.
Yeah, moves forward. As I said, this is so much pressure from this because this pawn structure. If the queen wasn't here, you'd say it's not being supported. But because the queen is here, the bishop is watching that enemy bishop. There's a lot of pressure, and there's the rook right behind it. So this is kind of an attack on all fronts
I
from
see.
white. Yeah, and black's rooks are not in an active position at all. Black's rooks aren't in a way protecting any of the important pieces. They're not being developed. But of course, this could be an argument could be said. This is because white takes the initiative. White moves first, so we don't see all the moves. But this is the situation we're in now. Let's see the other players. Let's hope nobody snuck a win.
Doesn't seem like
And
it. Looks like everyone's still there.
it looks like Dominic is gonna reach endgame here with Chator. They've kind of lost a lot on their material. Let's go see what's happening with Dominic. Yep. So in terms of material, same on pawns. Though black has two rooks, very very strong position. Two rooks here. White has a rook, a knight, and a bishop. So the only difference between white and black is that one side has two rooks, one side has a rook and a knight.
Right.
Yeah. And in terms of pawn structure, I'd say black is more controlled, more protected. But
I mean,
Oh, this is gonna take a while.
yeah, I don't
This,
know much about chess, but it looks like it could still go either way.
yeah, I mean, it could go either way. The pawn structure for white in the center squares, as you can see, is controlling quite a lot of space, but they're not being supported by something. So if the black rook ever gets close, that pawn structure could be done. Because if the pawns were in a ladder, kind of one diagonal to the other, they would be protecting each other. But because
Right.
they're both occupying center squares,
Or these two, you mean?
it's over. Yeah. I mean, also those two squares where the other pawns are. If the knight moves away, it's free food for the rook. Rook eats up these pawns which are on the same squares because
Right,
there's
right.
nothing you can do. So they're gonna be here for a while. I don't think we're gonna see Dominic and Chapter move away for a bit. So let's go see these other players.
Still no wins.
Still no wins. Well, Mew Mew, Ginger, and Brian are doing a few exchanges here. Let's see what just happened. Yeah, go back a bit. Oh my god, the timer. What has happened to Mew Mew Ginger? I don't know what's happening.
It's a lot of pressure on it.
So okay, so rook takes, queen goes back because it's being threatened. What happens next? This is where we are now. Can we go back a few? See what
Sure.
happened? What led them here?
A bit more? Or
Ooh,
is it-
okay. Keep going. Keep going back. Keep going back. I want to mention something here. Yeah, just keep going back. Keep going back. Basically, we're gonna see. I want to see where this black rook takes. Okay, perfect. Stop here.
Okay.
So you see, this is another way that people can develop rooks instead of it being castling and then moving it towards the center. Is you can see black has moved its pawn, the rook pawn, forward.
Oh, that was
Oh
game over. The
my,
game finished.
game over. Well, don't worry, we'll get to it. Let's go back
Sure,
to the
let's
move
go
that I
back.
was.
I think that was around turn
You'll see
9.
when the rook. Yeah, you'll see when the rook is moved forward. Yeah, the
Okay.
rook pawn. Right
So
there it is.
give me this
When
one.
you move the rook, yeah, when you move the rook pawn forward, right?
Yeah.
It offers up an opening for the rook outside of just castling. Because then, if it takes that whatever piece eats your rook pawn, your rook is now active, right?
Right.
Which is, I think, what happens here. So let's move forward.
Oh, he took.
He takes. It's effectively the same thing because now there's nothing blocking the rook from coming out of that file and being active. Because pause right here. That rook can move all the way up to h4 or something like that.
H2.
h4.
Oh, H4, I see.
H4.
Okay.
So move up to h4, protect numerous pieces, threaten different pieces, instantly active. And then you can see because he castled, his rook, the other rook is also already active. Discover check is possible if the pawn is being taken. So let's see what happens next. Yeah, exactly. So pawn goes forward. He sees it. He sees that the rook is about to be active. He moves the pawn forward. Doesn't really accomplish anything. And now, like I said, the rook on that h4 square is super valuable. It offers so much, not only in keeping the enemy knight there to protect the rook, but also protecting his own knight. So keep moving. Let's see what happens. Yeah, moves, takes as
Oh, that
expected.
rook push
Yep.
forward.
This is where we were.
amazing.
This is where we were earlier, right?
Yep.
Where move back two moves. Yeah, so as soon as that opportunity shows itself, rook takes, and then I think rook takes as well, right? Rook takes, knight takes. This is a threat on the queen. Queen has to move back. Yep. And then threat on the king. This is the unique L movement from the knight really showing its power here, and then of course it resigned.
Yep, that's the end of that.
So yeah, very impressive from Brian here, utilizing a different method of kind of activating his rook and really running away with the game with it, honestly. When you're able to activate your pieces that quickly, is kind of difficult to respond.
Right.
So now what's left?
Oh, a game just
Oh,
ended.
and I think we just saw a game end
I
there
think
that
Daniel
was
won
between.
against Azham.
Let's see how that game kind of went. So go to the end, the final few moves. It seems to be kind of a checkmate. So this is an end game between pawns, double rook. Ooh, it's so unfortunate because black not only has both rooks as well, but it has a bishop. So it covers for that diagonal weakness of the rooks. So yeah,
Oh,
and then
that's
it's
the
check. Oh my god. This is like, it's so sad. I mean, I assume he
White resigned,
he
basically. Yeah.
yeah,
White
he resigned here. You see the fork. I swear there's very few feelings as devastating as when you're forked in a check and then you're about to lose the piece that was like holding you together.
Where's the
As
fork?
soon as that king,
Was it?
the fork. Okay, so all right, move back a few moves. So right here, in this position,
Mhm.
black rook is going to threaten to check and then offer to take the rook in exchange for the king moving away, right? So black checks, right, with the rook. King moves away, rook takes rook, king takes rook. But and then you see here, if the king is on this diagonal, the other rook is completely defenseless. Bishop moves to check. It's a fork. King moves away. The rook is
Ah,
dead.
I see.
Game is over.
I see. Okay. Oh,
That's why I
okay.
said
I
when you
see it
see
now.
this, it's just your heart breaks, your crestfallen. You're like, I am absolutely done. That's why as soon as Azam saw this, he resigned. He knew it was over. Yeah,
Nothing the man
well
could do.
played. Yeah, well played by Daniel though.
The Dominic
Um,
Chato game is still going.
I told you it was going to take a while. All right. Let's look at the Harleif game. It seems like they're going to be here for a bit more. There's a few more pieces. There's an odd little diamond formation for the bishop. Doesn't really prove anything because the bishop could just get out. But it is threatening to push the bishop back because the bishop can't really take any pieces here. Not really threatening anything. So, yep, the bishop goes back. That's also development for the rook. The rook can move forward. I'd say because there's not really a queen, the black king is in a good position. However, the white king is not in the best because that bishop is always threatening to take. Oh yeah, so that's why the white rook is moved over to um, that e4 square is so that to stop the black bishop from moving forward and checking the king, because then it can just eat it. Offering a trade here, I don't think white takes. There's too many pieces from black that can take the rook after it takes knight. So I'm not entirely sure what. Yeah, if
I
black
mean, if
if
this
rook
happens,
takes
then the
knight,
rook can take it back, or the pawn
not
can
even
take it too.
doesn't even have to be that. It has to be the pawn first and then the rook. Yeah,
Right,
there's
right.
too many things that could happen that's advantageous for white here. So yeah, black's king is in a good position, but black is running out of time. White is putting the pressure on. This might fall the time again. Let's kind of go out a bit, see if Chatur and Dominic's game
No,
is
they're still
done.
going.
They're still
It's
going. I told
it's
you. They're
endgame
still.
though.
Is this endgame? What endgame is this? Pawn bishop, pawn rook. I feel like this should always be a win for black. It should always be a win for black. Yeah,
Based on the
because
combination of pieces.
yeah, based on the combination of pieces, and also because black can always watch over the pawn that's going to promote right here from afar. Black doesn't have to
Oh,
move
white
its piece forward.
resign.
Yeah, and white resigned, like I said, because you see here, the power of the bishop is in watching those long diagonals and forking with like different pieces.
Hmm.
But black's rook can just literally hang out all the way over on the edge and let the pawn move forward, promote to a queen, to whatever, and the game's pretty much over. So white
Oh,
resigns.
I see, I see. That means
Yeah,
Chateau
so
Fierdi is still undefeated.
yeah, I mean that's why in those endgames when I looked at those pieces, I said black's pretty much got this because in terms of when you still have a pawn, because white didn't have a pawn. White all white had was a bishop and king. When you still have a pawn, that pawn is so valuable because you can move it forward, it can be promoted, it can do so many other things, it can control space. But so now we're left with Harlev, Sushil, Akida, and Iman. And it looks like Akida and Iman are in endgame. Let's go see what happened there. How did they get here? This is pretty much White's game here. Because White has the kind of circle of pawns that can just follow him forward. And you see here, this is the utilization of the king's area of influence, right?
Right,
No
right.
matter what the black king does, you can't eat that pawn because the white king is there.
Oh,
And look at
double
that, two queens. Just
queens.
give up. Just give up at this point, please.
He's still going though, man's still going.
You resign. You have to resign at this point. The game is over.
I
You
think he just
literally
wants to
cannot
play
do
it
it.
out. He just wants to play it out.
The game is literally over. Yep. And
Oh, okay, there's the declines draw. Black offers draw, white declines draw. Of course.
I mean, I
Of
feel like
course,
that was
of
just good.
course.
That was just good sportsmanship. He just knew he was done. He was just like, let me just see if you know the mate, even though that was a pretty obvious mate. All right, so I think all that's left is Harlev, right?
Might be over to at this point. Oh no, they're still going.
They still got time. 7 seconds on the clock.
Oh, there you go. Oh, Harlev won.
Yeah, Harlev won. Let's also see at the what led up to this point.
Tell me when to stop.
Yeah, just keep going. Because we were at the end game with their pieces, right?
Yeah.
I think White had a bishop up above Black, right? If I'm not mistaken. All right, stop here. So we can see how they reached the end game point here, because this is where they still had their queen. So I assume a queen exchange happened. So let's keep moving forward. Yep. pawn takes, check, check. So it's not a check. Queen takes, queen takes. So that's the queen exchange. Wait, go back a bit. So right here, keep moving back until the check. Keep
until
moving
the
back
check.
until.
Okay.
Yeah. So at the point of this check, you know you can't take the queen, or even if you had a piece, if you took the queen, the rook is there, and the rook can move forward. The white rook, yep.
Right.
The white rook can move forward and take it. So you really don't want to move a piece forward to block the queen. If preferably, if you can still move, because the rooks are still protecting that little file, that corridor, king can just move in a corner, rooks can protect it, and you should be fine.
Okay.
Which is what Harlif does, right? He moves the king to the corner. The queen is now in an awkward position. It's kind of forking, it's looking down a few people, but the enemy queen is there as well.
Right.
So as white, you're thinking here, the best I can do is offer queen exchange, right? So he takes, he's still forking, but it's like, okay, here you go, here's my queen. Harlif also knows, I don't want queens here. I want to reach an end game where I can determine a win with what pieces I have. So
Right.
offers the queen exchange, and white takes, yep, and then now you're in end game.
I see.
That's a very kind of is like mutual. You both want it out of the way, and then if you've practiced this is where practice comes in. If you practice the end game at this point, you should win. But the thing is, Harlif is in a better position because he's up with not only a knight but also his pawn structure. Both pawn structures are protected.
Makes sense.
The pawns on the A and the B square are both watching over each other, and then the king with his influence and also the bishops are watching over the squares on the right side.
So you mean these and these?
Yes. So there's very well protected. Black for white instead. Sure, the white king's pawns are being protected, but those three little dudes on their starting squares haven't done anything, and they're not protecting any. Like even if one pawn was forward, at least they'd be protecting one pawn, but none of them are forward.
I see.
I'm not saying you have to advance your pawns every time, but in this moment, black is obviously objectively in a better position. So let's see what happens here. Right? So see, as soon as the opportunity shows itself, black takes, because then the pawn structure, what I was recommending earlier was the B pawn move up and then you could protect it. Absolutely nothing can happen now. Yep. And then this was the diamond formation earlier, right?
Yep.
Yeah, he can just retreat back. So we didn't know, we lacked the information to know that black was winning at this point.
Right.
That move is like completely free for black. Black doesn't have to worry about anything. Offers up the rook exchange, but this is a very favorable rook exchange for black because black can just takes. Yep, he supports the rook instead. King moves forward. King takes, check, moves up. But you see, because of the position of all the pawns, the bishop, that rook can't come in and just check again. It's not possible. That's why I said the pawn structure for black is a lot better compared to white. But that's why white's going for the proactive move, trying to see if he can get a checkmate, maybe a blunder. But I don't think that's that's in the cards here for white. So yeah, moves. This threatens the bishop, takes. This is endgame. This is just a slaughter for the black rook because there's. But the thing is, this endgame is always winnable for black because black is up the bishop and the bishop watches over that square. Square takes. Yep, and this is kind of it. You can't do anything because you see. And is this where he resigns or
no? This is checkmate. This is checkmate.
Because the thing is, white earlier on, white is not in the position is not in a winning position, so they have to make a proactive play. But Harlif knows I'm in a better position. I can offer favorable trades. And yeah, I just have to commend it. They played they both played a pretty well match. Time was all the way up to the end. Yeah. Seconds left. So
that was very interesting to see.
Yeah, we only have one undefeated, and I think the next games have already started. So this is the last round. Who's your money on? Who do you think is going to get this?
Oh, well, I mean, I think Chato's going to definitely win this game. He's been undefeated so far.
You don't think there's going to be an upset? What if we come up with 2 players who are 4 wins? What happens then?
I'm not sure.
Let's
then
say Chato loses this match.
Look at who used more time, I suppose. But I think that's already built into the light chess system.
Yeah, so it'll determine who wins anyway.
I think so.
Ooh, Harlif and Chatur. I think that's a match to look for.
Definitely.
Harlif and Chatur very much. But Dominic is against Hatara. I mean, did Dominic lose the last round? I think he won, didn't? Oh, no, he lost. Oh, that's unfortunate. I was about to say he shouldn't be fighting against Hatara if he won, but yeah, he lost.
He was up against Chato. The dominant
Yeah, not
champion so
surprising.
far. Yeah.
The dominant player. We don't know if he's gonna be champion,
True,
but
true. Dominant player so
looking
far.
like the cards are showing he might be.
Yeah.
might be. So I feel like a lot of the players are still just developing their pieces. Nothing too crazy is going on. Tata Batata very conservative. I think he started with probably a French defense or a Sicilian because his pawn structure is very kind of closed up. But I feel like if anything, if one word's been hammered in this entire day is pawn structure and fork, those kind of things that just keep going on because it's the
Those
same every
are
game.
right. Those are like the very basic building blocks of chess, isn't it?
Yeah, and usually beyond that point, oh yeah, and end game. End game is
End
also
game. End
something
game.
that practice your end game, guys. If you want to get good at chess, end game is because mid game is a lot about active decisions because it's very unique what can happen. But end game usually is the same. You'll always reach a point where you only have a few pieces left, and there's only so much you can do.
Right. Right.
All right, looking over here, I think we can jump into Ivan Haikal and Mio Mio.
Hey, Maneka Mimi. Okay.
All right, so you see here both have kind of castled. It's kind of the standard thing. This is where you can see kind of the patterns of chess kind of show itself. The center squares, white has a really far up pawn on that. What is that? That would be the e5 square right
E5.
there.
Yeah. E5.
Really controlling a lot of squares, and it's being protected by not only the knight is protecting that pawn, it's the queen as well. If you get the rook down there as well, that's just a disaster because there's so much pressure on that focal point in that center square. So I'd say white is a bit more active here. Yeah, black is doing the conservative play, trying to move its pieces towards the center there. And that was being threatened by the white bishop. I'm surprised it actually didn't get taken there. I'm surprised, but I guess the white bishop is more important just to hold down this knight, watching
Oh,
over
I
the center
see.
square.
Right.
Yeah, because that if that knight moves away, and maybe tries to take I don't know the white knight on c3. If it takes that, offers to take that, gets taken by the pawn. So white doesn't really care about that knight. It's just gonna hold it down, make sure it doesn't move anywhere else. And I mean, black is up material, but not really up material. I think they're kind of the same, but black is not as developed as white right now. So I'd say Iman Haikal has a better chance of winning this so far right now, but this is still early game. I'd say
Yeah.
this is still in the openings, is moving towards mid game. So let's see the other players. I think it's pretty standard so far. Standard stuff. Whoa, okay. What is going on with Very Good Boy and Azam here? There's a very wild pawn structure. And you can see the pawn structure on the left side here has already been broken because he ate a pawn or he ate some sort of piece, maybe.
You mean this year, right?
Yeah, yeah. So you can't really castle there. It's gonna be a little awkward. Can't castle on the other side because there's no pawns there to protect it.
Right.
Yeah, you would be activating the rook, but then your king's in a very bad spot. And actually, you could see the white's rook on B there, right?
Mm-hmm.
On B1 is just staring right down there, like barreling down. If you castle, if you do nothing, I'm right here for it.
Right. I see.
Yeah, and then the white bishop also on E2 there is super threatening. It's watching over all sorts of diagonals. If white moves its queen forward, it protects it. It's a very good position, and it's being protected by the queen. So if knight tries to take, it's just exchange. It's going to be material all over the place. I personally think if black doesn't mess up, they have a chance. They're a bit forward. They can offer to take quite a bit of material, but white is in a better position. The rooks are they're smacking. If I have to say something, some of these players they're playing like the way they play with the rooks very well. Especially that one game who opened the rook on the corner of the board instead of castling was very good.
Right.
Some of these players gotta read up on what rooks do because I swear to God they haven't moved them.
I see.
But that's fine because it's a casual game. It doesn't really matter too much.
Like I said, it really shows the variance of skill with these players
Oh
and
yeah, some
how.
some games you just see that they're always being used every piece,
Right.
or and if not being used, they're being traded off so that the pieces they do use are more useful. Yeah, rook going all the way over to the seventh rank here, kind of just showing itself, making itself known. Very threatening, I'll have to say. Usually you don't put it up here without any support. There's no pieces that are kind of watching over it, but White's making a statement. Very good boy saying, I'm not a good boy today. I'm a naughty boy.
I'm a dominant boy going forward.
Yeah. So let's see what everyone else is doing here. Ooh, actually,
So
there's a check
was
there.
a
But no,
check,
that's
yeah.
fine. We'll see it. We'll see it. We'll see it from here as well, right? It's fine. I think Queen just took, so it doesn't matter that much. Yeah, very good boys. Knight was taken by a
Was
Queen.
just a tease there, nothing really.
He's not being that good of a boy. All right. Ooh, actually, go to Harlef's game. Harlef and Chatur. I think they fought before, have they not? Or was it? No, I think Harlef lost to Dominic, right? Was that
Right,
correct?
they've never met before, I think, before this.
So these guys haven't fought each other yet, but I can say
These are the two
that
players to watch, though.
these are the two players to watch if we're talking about the creme de la creme, if you will. But you can see the disparity in time. Harlef is just bleeding time. He's at 3 minutes, while Chatur, who's in a very conservative, White usually is very aggressive, but you can see Black's pieces are all the way out, at least for the pieces that he has moved. But White is just chilling. 9 minutes on the clock, and I think Harlef, his kind of time management skills, as opposed to how he plays, is kind of showing itself. Is that he's a very good player, but sometimes trying to make these decisions under the clock is really proving to be kind of an ordeal.
Right.
And that's just kind of, you have to practice for things like rapids or blitz even. If you're not used to making those decisions or having like kind of a memory of like, okay, I should probably do this. This is probably the best move for now, and then think about it while your opponent's doing a move. So Chatter is playing it well. In maybe, who knows, maybe Chatter's noticed that Harlef plays quite slow, so he's taking conservative moves, kind of really taking it slow. He's castled and he's kind of playing it slow. His bishops are really closed in. You don't see his bishops staring out, but it is kind of like
We have
threatening.
this one, but the other one's
Yeah,
still.
that's one move, but the other one's kind of still just waiting in. But I feel like this is still, you could say this is a strategy. You play it slow. If you know the other player is kind of aggressive, or maybe you prefer to be defensive on White, even though White is traditionally more of an aggro position because you move first, you can make the proactive move.
Right.
But yeah, I feel like Chato is in a good spot here. He has his knights developed, his bishop, one of them is developed. Okay, instantly Harlef says, I'm pushing my pawn up, I'm taking the center square. However, you can keep in mind this isn't an unprotected one. The knight is also watching over that square right there, the black knight, right?
Yeah.
Maybe Harlef can take this opportunity to move his other knight forward, develop that piece as well. Yeah, maybe onto that square. Because Harlef, his development is not that great right now. His bishop is still trapped in there, not really doing anything. Maybe watching over the square, but of that pawn there in front of the knight, but it's not really doing anything. That C square, that C5 square, that pawn.
C5.
Yeah, it's being protected by the bishop, but what does that pawn by itself really accomplish? That's what I'm trying to say.
Right.
I feel like maybe a move that Harlef could do is maybe move that black square bishop up to maybe D6. At least he would watch over both pawns. It would be in a position of more activity. You could move back. It'd be more active. And also the queen is watching over that square as well. So it's not entirely undefended. And the rook. So it opens up that file. That'd be a good position. But I feel like Harlef is kind of stressing over the time thing here, really. And Chatter's got time. He could go make tea. You could come back, make some instant noodles, 2 minutes, and he would still have time to play the match. So I feel like we can move over. I feel like Chatter's going to take his time. He's not going to have to worry about anything.
Yeah.
And two matches.
In 2 matches already. Okay.
So it was
see.
Sushil, it seems, right? Sushil lost to somebody. Who did he lose to?
Sushil
lost to Brian. Wow. Okay.
And I
so
think
Brian
Dominic
ekes out 3 wins here. And Dominic, what happened to Dominic?
I think Dominic lost to Hatata Batata.
Wow. Well, Dominic had that one really impressive game, but I guess, his kind of fire burnt out, maybe. He kind of got knocked out here.
Just
2
wasn't
wins,
in the
but
cards.
still, it's an admirable performance still, still very good.
Definitely.
I guess we could look at their games maybe after we look at these live games right now. So we were just watching Harlef and Chatter. Maybe let's look at our very good boy, who's not that good of a boy, and I don't think he's in a good boy spot. I think he's in a bad boy spot.
Kind of in a danger boy spot right now.
So you see right here, both his rooks are all the way up. Yes, they're being stacked, so they are being supported, but he is not in a winning position. These rooks don't really offer much because one bad move from his king, because I think he just got checked, or he was just being threatened just now. If you go back a move or two.
Oops. Wait, what
No,
am I-
okay, just keep going forward now. Don't worry, just keep going forward. So yeah, see,
yeah,
he
was
got checked. He had to move forward. Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Once you get in this position, you have no supporting pieces. Your active pieces are all the way over on the other side of the board. You're in a losing spot.
Right.
And I'm not saying I want to predict anything, but White's probably going to resign this or get checked because Black just has so many more pieces that can offer. He has an amazing pawn structure right here. You can see Black's king is kind of just chilling. As me and the bros would say, the piss chilling. Nothing's going on for Black King, and just sitting there relaxing, sipping tea, sipping coffee to the moon. But White is stressing, pulling out hairs because this is not where you want to be. Yep. So solidify the pawn structure, move it up a bit, but then you get checked. Move back, get checked. This is going to offer material. You can see the rook is going to take the pawn. After that, could go for any of the pawn structures. Goes for that one. Yeah, this game is looking like it's donezo. Not much that White can do here. Yeah, it solidifies, but White could always move forward, check, and then offer to take, because let's say Black Knight on what square is that? The resolution isn't the highest.
It's on F5.
Knight on F5 could always move forward, check, force the king to move, develop another piece. There's all sorts of things Black can do here. But I'd say Azam is in a good position. You're a very good boy. That's what you get for not being a good boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's getting checked. I feel like this one is in the books. I feel like we can tune out of this one, go to another one maybe.
Oops, that didn't work. Why can't I go back? Hello? Okay, there we go.
Okay, no one snuck out. People are still here. Harlif and Chator, it looks like they're still playing it kind of slow. Like I said, Chator can play it really, really slow and conservative.
Get the time difference now, though.
Yeah, I feel like we might want to... I think we can watch over Harlif and Chato. I think that one might end soon. Unless Harlif just turns on his super instinct and he just keeps playing moves.
I mean, he's done this for the past few games. He's been like on
20
seconds.
I'm not saying he hasn't.
I'm not saying
he hasn't.
Yeah.
But all I'm saying is Chato has proven himself to be a very...
Definitely.
Kind of a very standardized, very good chess player. He's played it well. I don't think he's played any big mistakes. His pieces are well developed. His king is with a nice pawn structure, with two rooks that are ready to fly at his rescue if he needs it. Yeah, the white knights, quite literally. Well, not white knights, white rooks.
White rooks, yeah.
There's only one white knight. So yeah, you see here, we're still in this position where Harlif's pieces are not developed because he's been under the pressure of White, who's just been slowly adapting. Yep, and now Black is going to see this white rook move forward, offer trade, takes, probably takes here with the pawn. I don't see why not. Yep, takes, force the queen to move forward. Yep. Yeah, this is about what you'd expect as White. You don't mind these kinds of trades when you're in such a comfy position. But Black isn't that bad either. Black does have those double rooks as well. Was that a take there, or was that just a reposition?
I think it was a take.
Oh, it takes the pawn. All right. So destroying the pawn structure. No center square pawns other than the one on that C square. C5 there, right?
C5,
for
yeah.
Black. Moves forward, tries to push the queen out. So finally activating some of his pieces for Harlif. Wanting to move it forward. 9 seconds, by the way. Chator can just sip coffee, waiting for Harlif with 9 seconds. What's the time added for a move? 20 seconds? Was
2
that
seconds.
it or what?
It's 2 seconds.
2 seconds. Oh yeah, so he really gotta turn it on. Let's see it, Harlif.
Oh, I think this
Time's
might
running
be
out.
it. This might be it. Oh no, he's moving.
Yeah, he sees it. Queen takes. That's a queen exchange. Yeah, but this is the diagonal. He's got the rooks. He's got the dudes, and I don't think Harlif saw that. This is looking really,
he's under
really
a lot of pressure. Not much he can do.
Yeah, but Chator's got the time. He doesn't have to play hastily.
Yeah, exactly. There it is.
Yeah, and there it is. You can see there. Go back to the queen exchange, actually. Because in this position, right, it's like I said again. Go back a bit more.
Wait, okay.
it's again where the position is very not to say messy, but you would prefer it if you could reach endgame faster, right?
Okay.
So you, even if you're in a favorable position, you want to offer a queen exchange, unless you're somehow able to fork the queen or fork like a check and then take the queen in response. Usually, it's better to just get the queens out of the way. Not to say anything controversial, but the queen is useful, yes, but sometimes it's a lot easier to think when the queen's not
Right,
there.
right, I see. Because otherwise you have to be
Yeah,
looking a lot more squares of where the queen can go, right?
exactly. In terms of, let's say, for these players, maybe at this level, it would make more sense. I just want the queen out of the way.
Right.
So eventually, you just settle with a queen exchange. So takes. So here, you're in a very delicate position. This is where I think Black's king moves to the corner, right? If we go, like what Harlef does. Okay, develops. Here, forks, right here, right?
Mm-hmm.
You could take the knight, and then you could take the knight, but then you'd be threatened by a pawn, but you could also take a rook. You could take the queen. It could be queen exchange. Maybe you take with the queen and then like you take with rook and then
Yeah.
rook takes. Yeah, so it could be a trade. So let's see what happens here. So queen takes, rook takes, and then you're in a favorable position as white because you've already had your rook up front. Sure, you can take with that rook, but then you can bring another piece there to take if that rook eats. So let's see what happens here. Yep, rook takes, and then pawn takes, I assume. Yep, pawn takes, rook goes up, pawn structure is broken, white has complete reign, and the game's over.
Timeout.
So yeah, Chato played really well. I think Chato is just but the game is kind of done at this point. Let's be real.
Pretty much. There's only one
There's
game
only
left.
one game left. Daniel and Akidamari. Oh no, only 10 seconds. Let's go see how this game ends.
9 seconds left for Akid.
See, it's again when the king is on this quadrant in one corner of the map or one part of the map, you're able to keep them there. You're in a better position,
There it
and
is.
it looks like it's timed out. Yeah. So let's congratulate our winner for the 21 VR competition, Swiss tourney competition, is Chator Virdi. So congratulations to him. In second place is Daniel, and Harlef in third place. I gotta admit, we thought Harlef would have placed higher, didn't you think?
Yeah, but he hasn't been playing in a while. But I did expect him to do better. But
He's been a
it's
little
not in the
rusty, but hey,
cards.
well played by everyone. I gotta admit, a really outlier game was that game between Harlef and Dominic. I really liked how Dominic played that game, but I guess he couldn't really keep it up. But that's fine. And yeah, congrats to Chator, Daniel, and Harlef. The Euros are yours.
We've seen some very interesting games today. That was actually incredibly
Very,
exciting.
yeah, very interesting, very fun. You can see the statistics on the right there. Black wins a lot more than white wins, which is actually as a interesting tidbit for everybody. Usually, white is more favored, but it shows that these players are very skilled in their defensive plays as black.
I see.
But they're able to pivot out. So very good players. Interesting games. 30 games played today. Average rating around 1600. So yeah, it was about what you'd expect. So yeah, congrats to all the players and yeah, good games.
Yeah, good games. GG everyone. Thanks for watching. Thanks Ali for commentating. That was
Hey, no problem.
very informative, especially for me. Even I don't really know much about the game, but I learned a lot just by watching these games and hearing your commentary. So I'd say
It was fun. It was fun.
it was pretty good pretty good day, pretty good games. GG everyone. Thanks for
Yeah.
playing. Congratulations to the winners. Oh, some amazing
Yeah.
things today. Some amazing things.
Yeah, are we about to close it? Are we done?
Yeah, we're gonna close. Thanks again.
All right.
Stream's ending
Thanks
soon.
everybody for watching, and to any viewers who watch this later on, these guys are insane. some people playing on 2 seconds.
Right, quite the game.
Yeah.
If you came into the middle of the game, I'd say it's worth it to just watch from the start. There was some interesting plays in the first few games too. Oh
Yeah,
man,
you can kind of see how each player plays. So yeah, great
definitely.
games. Yeah, I hope the players enjoy and are satisfied. And those who didn't do that well, there's always next time. So you can always brush up, practice your end game,
Hell yeah.
maybe manage your time better. All right. So
Okay,
thanks
everyone.
everybody, and see you.
See you later. There's next week is our next stream. There will be Valorant for the next weekend, and that will be our last
Ooh.
event for Virtual Rentap 2021 this year. So I hope to see you guys then next
Those
week.
Valorant bros.
Yeah,
Don't
you know
forget.
how it is. You know how it is. Okay, thanks again.